everybody, welcome to Back Issues. I'm Tiffany.
I'm Sal.
I'm Ben.
The reason I wanted to do this is because the Sandman, the Doll's House, I've got 3 different versions of this book. I think this is my favorite, and like it's such a cheap thing to say in terms of Sandman because it's like everybody loves this one. You know what I mean? Like,
there's a reason it's a favorite.
It's like I love this volume. It's quite dark, folks. I'm gonna give you. I do want to give you a heads up. We don't usually like give a warning about that, but I will say this is quite dark. So if you're like a person who gets triggered by certain things, like this might not be a read for you, but I do highly suggest people read it.
But it also might be cathartic.
Now you can do a couple of different things. You could read the book, which no matter what, you should do. You could listen to the book, which is actually pretty accurate to the story, and like all the dialogue in there is pretty much verbatim.
Oh, they didn't update it for modern times?
No,
not everybody's on cell phones?
What they did do, though, is like sometimes there's additional dialogue because it's like you don't see anything.
Right, it's an audio drama.
So like they have to add some context, and there's a narrator which may not always like be there. So like it is different, but it's still worth a read because like honestly, like the art is great. And now you can also watch it.
I was gonna say you forgot the fourth thing that they could do.
What?
Buy the interactive playset. Much like Barbie's Dream House, this is Neil Gaiman's The Doll's House.
The Doll's House from Milton Bradley. Oh no, I've been cast into purgatory.
Don't worry, I have a book for that.
But no, you can watch it, but I will say, from what I've seen, and I did, like, admittedly speaking, I scrubbed through some episodes because I didn't have enough time from when this released, the show release, to when we're filming this, to have watched all of it.
Fair.
But there are some pretty key things that are quite different. There are some things that are spot on, too. I'm going to admit that 100%.
Is it cool? Seeing it?
Some of it, yes, and other parts, like I think I need to have started over and like watch the entire thing from soup to nuts, because like Neil's clearly telling a different story there, and so like players are doing different things, characters are in other roles, and I'm like trying to orient myself in the space.
Right.
So don't do what I did. What I did was bad because I just needed to know for shooting this
if it was different or if it was the same.
And it is different. But like I said, there are some things where I'm like, wow, that is straight out of the book. Straight out, which I'm just like, oh, I want more of that. Because it's like I do love like new things and like you know, like people innovating.
But when something is so good already,
why break it?
Yeah, it's just sometimes for me, I wanted to see the thing like come to life.
That's what most comic book fans think they want.
I do want that, but I want it to come to life like from the page. But I realize that's just my imagination.
Theater of the mind.
Well, and if I may, just like one of the things that I've always noticed is that like, as comic book fans, we all want to see the thing that we love, that we've enjoyed from the comic, like legitimized thanks to celluloid and the cachet that comes with like film and TV. Mm-hmm. But like, there's nothing wrong with the comic book, and in fact, it wouldn't be without it. And so sometimes it's actually more beautiful that it is a comic book than if they just use the comic book as a storyboard for something else.
Exactly, and like honestly, when you think about Sandman is one of those books among other books that like help to elevate the comic book industry from just the standard
Western superhero.
Yes, and what like pop culture or like the overall zeitgeist thinks of comic books. So like, I don't know. Anyway, so we're going to talk about The Doll's House today. Let's be honest, there's some stuff that they definitely changed in the show, and part of it I think is because I'm not 100%, and I don't know this, but I'm not 100% what rights they had to certain characters. And honestly, if you watch the show, you're gonna get like the gist of these, but then you're gonna read this and be like, this is different.
Right.
And that's okay too.
So you have a different experience.
And sometimes more.
And maybe that is a value, because the fact is you're not, like, by reading the book, you're not having the exact same experience.
No.
So it's worth a read. Gaiman had an idea of what he wanted to come next.
Right, I remember you telling us that the first volume is basically him going like, this is probably gonna get canceled.
Yeah, he wrote the first volume like, I don't think this is gonna make it, and then it did, and he's like, cool, all right, so I'm gonna keep going. So he writes the next, he has an idea in his head for the next one, right? And then he goes like, no, I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah, that's gonna be different.
I'm not gonna do that.
So he throws that away.
In an interview with Neil Gaiman, the reason he does what he chooses to do in terms of like not just going with his first, like, this is where the story is going next.
Right.
He goes, my goal wasn't to be a crowd pleaser. Gene Wolfe once defined good literature as that which can be read with pleasure by an educated audience and reread with increased pleasure. I wanted to produce good literature. I saw The Doll's House as an opportunity to begin training my audience to accept a broader range of material than they may have been used to seeing in comics.
Pushing their literature boundaries.
Well, he sure did. Like, that's kind of fun to read 30 years removed because that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, so like he specifically was like, I want to do...
We're going to elevate comics.
I want to do the Season of Mist next.
Oh, Volume 4.
Volume 4. That's what's supposed to... He was like, I want this next.
That should be 2.
But then he was like, wait, no, because I don't want this to turn into the X-Men.
What?
Episodic,
serial.
Okay.
I don't want it to be like that. The interviewer was like, I mean, at the time, X-Men was selling quite well,
right.
And a lot of people wouldn't see that as bad.
Well, but that's why he's trying to avoid it, because like everyone would probably encourage him to do that.
So, if you were wondering, because like there's a moment in Preludes and Nocturnes where Lucifer is like, oh yeah, no, this ain't over.
Right, yeah, I do remember that.
That's where this is.
Okay,
this is where this
it ain't over in Volume 4.
In Volume 4, okay?
Okay.
But we're not going to talk about the Volume 4.
No, we're not talking about Volume 4.
Put in Volume 4.
Right?
Away.
We're not even going to talk about Volume 3. This is the Dream Country, and for a lot of people are like, this is the one that confuses them.
Why?
Okay, because we go Preludes and Nocturnes, here's a story. We go Doll's House. Here's a story with 2 random short stories in here, but they're not random.
But
But
they're
if
deliberate.
you're reading them as it's coming out or for the first
You're
time,
like, what?
you're like, what the hell is happening?
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right?
You're also not conditioned by the ever-changing comic book industry and the vertigo influence of the British invasion. Yeah.
And so here's Volume 3, which is a series of 4 short stories.
Oh, God damn it.
Is that all that is?
Yes.
Okay. So the story doesn't even really continue until Volume 4. Like, you read Volume 1,
part of the world.
Like 2.5, and then 4.
To be fair,
But you do need those short stories.
some of my favorite ones are in here, honestly. Like, there are things in here that will either have come from this book or will be referenced in future books, which is why you have to read it, all right? There's a story about Calliope in here, a muse, which is horrific and beautiful and amazing, but it's definitely not pleasant. It's not a pleasant story. Let me tell you right there right now. There's A Dream of a Thousand Cats.
Yes.
Which is a fantastic story. There is a story of William Shakespeare in this one. It is freaking amazing, and I love it. And there's Facade, which I think is my favorite.
Okay.
Which talks about Element Girl.
Oh.
And a lot of people find it to be sad. There is self-harm, but like it is still like a incredible story, and definitely to be read. So there's just stuff in here, right?
Right.
The Calliope one comes in later on for sure.
Yeah, that factors in. But that's Volume 3,
but
and
we're
we're
not
not talking
reading
about Volume
Volume
3.
Putting 3 away as well.
But I do have, of course, my multiple copies of
Volume
Doll's
2.
House. And why do I have multiple copies? Well, because, of course, this isn't even the most recent version of it. There are other versions of it.
Yeah.
This is the recolored edition, right? Why does this one look so much smaller than this version?
Yeah, why?
Oh, because when they decided they were going to put out a trade of this, they decided to start with Doll's House because, like, apparently, like, about year 2 of, like, writing Sandman, Rolling Stone picked it up and it got popular, and so DC had to put something out, and they're like, let's put this out, right? And so, like, first of all, there's a forward on all of these. The forward is by Clive Barker, and then there's another thing by Gaiman, which is like a summary, because they were worried that people are only going to buy this one.
Yeah.
And so he put, like, hey, but if you'd already read it, and you read this, there's more information. There are things that happen in the summary that he couldn't put in the pages of Preludes and Nocturnes.
Oh.
So you're rewarded for reading it.
Cool.
FYI.
We have another copy of that. Actually, it's on the set right now.
But you don't get that in the
That's my 3 copies then.
recolored version.
No, that's in here.
Oh, it is.
Oh, that forward is in there too?
What isn't in here is the reprinting of issue, I believe, 8. The
death issue.
They
Okay.
The last issue of Volume 1.
They shoved the death issue in here
Just
because
to contextualize what's happening.
death, which made Gaiman crazy. He's like, that's not where this goes. That's not how this starts.
Yeah, no, but you know what that is? They
That's-
know how marketable she is.
That's exactly what it was. Marketing was like, yeah, but she's popular. But yeah, so if you have the original Preludes and Nocturnes and this, I believe you've got, it's like double.
So you get the same death issue.
Yeah, but it's not in this one. They took it out. They took it out in future reprints.
Because Gaiman's like, no.
Or DC is like, I mean, it's cheaper to print fewer pages, so.
Even in this one, which is the original colors, she's out of this as well.
Okay.
So.
What do you prefer?
I like the one without.
Because
it's the correct start.
Right.
Because where do we start? Let's get into it.
I don't know.
We start in Africa.
Good.
in the long past. And what we essentially get is a tale, a myth based on literally nothing.
Based on literally nothing.
Gaiman's just making this stuff up, right?
Cool. Okay.
A man and a young man just recently came into manhood.
Okay.
Goes out into the desert with his grandfather, where he's like, all right, we're here. Like literally, there's like nothing around. His
We are
grandfather's
here.
Like, we are here. Give me the firewood. And now I want you to go out into the desert and find something.
Okay.
He's like what? He's like, you'll know it when you find it. So Grandpa makes the fire. Kid goes out, comes back with a glass piece that looks like almost like a heart. And he's like, cool, now we may begin the story. And so we begin the story. And the story is like of long ago that like their tribe was really the first tribe. And they don't tell anybody that because everybody would get upset. But they were the first tribe, right? And they lived in a city of glass.
Okay.
And like they were ruled over by a queen named Nada. And she was 16 years old. And she was the most beautiful woman the sun had ever seen.
Okay.
But Nada had no man. And all the women were like, dude, where's your man?
Right.
And she's like, but what man is there for me? And they'd be like, oh shit, yeah, no, that's true.
Fair.
I mean, look at you, you're amazing. No. Nada looks out from her balcony one night to see a man walking through the streets. He looks up at her and she gazes down at him and immediately she falls in love with him, right? And that night she cannot sleep and she wakes up the next day and she tells her people, you have to find this man, and they cannot find him. And so she goes out into the jungle and she asks the king of birds.
They see a lot.
Please, yes. Like, you must have, like, someone must have seen him. He asks all of the bird kingdom. No one has seen him. Except for the tiny weaver bird. The tiny weaver bird says, like, oh yeah, no, I totally saw him. And he, like, gave me some grain. And that, like, and from the conversation and the depiction of him, the king of birds goes like, oh no.
Oh, you don't want to see this guy.
You stay away from that man.
Okay.
Because he is not of mortal or of God. Because this was a time when gods walked the earth, right? You just stay away from
the god of birds is there, or the king of birds.
Yeah. So, like Nada falls into despair. The weaver bird's like, you know what you should do? There's this berry that grows on this tree on the side of the mountain of the sun. Grows the flame berry, and she's like, did you hear the words you just said?
Right.
I literally cannot go there.
Yeah.
I will die. And he's like, yeah, I'll go. I'll do it for you.
Oh, cool.
So he goes and
You are made of feathers. You will die too.
Well, he goes and he comes back, and in this time when he comes back, he was a white bird that like left, and when he comes back, he's charred and burnt to like an amber color, and that is why the weaver bird is this color.
Oh, that's fun. Okay.
And so she brings the weaver bird brings the berry back. Nada is to take the berry because the berry will take her to her greatest love.
Ah, okay.
Right?
Cool.
And because of her help, or because of the bird's help, Nada decrees that like no one may ever kill or eat of the flesh of the weaver bird, which is why they cannot kill the weaver bird.
Okay. I didn't know they couldn't, but that's nice.
Nada takes the berry, and when she wakes up, she's in the realm of the dreaming. So she goes forth to the palace where she finds Kaikul, and he takes off his dream helm and reveals him, and like she's like, oh, because like she basically
That's her greatest love.
Well, yeah, but she doesn't know who it is.
No.
She's like, I'm in love with this man. You have to help me find him. And he takes the helmet off, and there he is. And she's like,
Oh, it's you.
Oh no.
And because he like we know what Morpheus looks like.
Yeah.
But Morpheus appears across cultures as different things. So he looked like that man we saw earlier.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Cool, okay.
And so like she immediately like realizes that this cannot be, and she like coughs and coughs until she spits the berry out and like comes back to her plane of existence,
Aw,
right?
Okay.
And so like he's there too, and he's like, why did you come looking for
Hey!
me? What's up with that?
You thought you could just wake up and ditch me?
Yeah. He's like, well, why did you come looking for me and then like run away? And she's like,
This bird gave me a berry. It's a whole
she's
long
like,
story.
because I love you more than any mortal woman has ever loved a man, and because I cannot love the endless.
Right.
It'll cause
By the
disaster.
way, the endless.
The endless are these 7 beings. I'm gonna say beings. They're beings because they're not gods.
They're not gods.
They exist, and they exist in all places,
Right.
Okay.
everywhere, not just here.
And they
Yeah, they're
represent like
universal.
Yes.
And they represent like primordial like aspects of the
yes.
human
So
condition.
and they
so,
all start with a D. So it's destiny, death, dream, desire, despair, destruction, and delirium. But she's like, it'll cause like destruction to me, to you, and to my people. That can't happen, right?
Right.
And he's like, no,
Presumably,
no.
I guess. I mean,
He's
I don't
like-
really know why it's such a problem, but like I get it.
Because an endless may never love a mortal.
Is that just decreed?
It is a
Is that from
creed.
Volume 1, or is that just a thing?
It is a creed that like that cannot be.
Okay.
It cannot be.
And she knows
she
it, and
knows
Morpheus
it.
is like, why?
Morpheus is like, no, but he's like infatuated with this.
Oh,
He's like, I
but
will
he likes her too.
He was like,
Well,
I will
like-
take you to my realm, and I will make you the queen of dreams.
Yeah, he saw
Oh.
her, and he's like, okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm in. Nada turns herself into a gazelle and runs away, and Dream turns himself into a hunter and kills her. But she's not dead. So then she turns back into a woman and she runs up this mountain where she figures, I will take my womanhood and then he won't want me because that's how love works with mortal men.
Right.
So she does that and he's like, he heals her but doesn't give her back her virginity. And he's like, I don't care about that.
Okay.
He's like, I'm not a mortal man. That doesn't
Right,
doesn't
that doesn't
matter to
please
me.
me, yeah.
Like I love you. And so he takes her into her robe and they make like passionate love that evening. And all across the world, everyone dreams of her face and her body and her sweat.
Okay.
And they wake up and the sun looks upon them and goes, no, that is
You
wrong.
crossed the line.
You're not allowed to do that.
You can't do that, and sends a fiery ball down and destroys her city.
Okay.
And kills everyone in it.
Oh.
And she's like, this is exactly what I was talking about.
This is what I was afraid of.
This is why.
So we don't do these things.
And so like she grabs him, hugs him, and then pushes him away and throws herself off of a cliff that they're on before he can do anything. And she's dashed upon the rocks. And when she awakens, she's on like the shadowy border to death. And he's
Right.
like, how could you do this to me?
Right.
You would rather like go to grandmother death than to be my queen? How insulting.
Right. I remember Morpheus is kind of a
dick?
dimwit when it comes to empathy.
Yes. And so like he's like, I offer you yet again. Like, come and be my queen and like
Right.
or I will condemn you to an eternity of pain.
Yeah. Like,
I'll condemn
thanks.
your soul to pain.
Clearly,
and
you're
she's like,
an expert
Oh man,
at love.
you
What are
must
my
love me a
choices?
lot.
so she's like, please, she's like, if I have to, he's like, if I ask you again, like, and she's like, please don't ask me again because like I can't be your queen. My people are dead.
Right.
And like,
Well, I mean, they're already dead.
more destruction will come from this.
Yes.
We have to let
Did
this
you
go.
see what the sun did?
Yeah.
That was just the sun.
And so she's like, if you care for me, please do not ask me again and thus condemn me
yeah.
to torment. And she turns to leave and he does ask her again.
Of course he does.
And that's where the story ends. And the grandson's like, what happened? He's like, I don't know. I don't know. Like
fucked up. I don't know.
Kaikul asked her, I don't know what happened after that. But essentially, he tells his grandson to take the glass and to hide it in someplace in the desert. He's like, can I throw it? So he throws it into the desert. He's like, because one day you will take someone out here, your grandchild out
They
here.
have to find that.
Yes, and you'll do it as it was passed down to me and so on and so forth. Then there's a little side of it that goes like, the women in this tribe also have a version of the story that they tell in their own language,
Oh.
their own secret language, that perhaps things might have happened differently, but that's their story to tell. So you're not going to hear that. I'm like, all right, cool. So then we get into the doll's house,
all right.
in which we end up, we're in the threshold. The threshold is the realm of desire. And in the realm of desire, there is nothing but like the threshold and this, which is this huge like fortress of desire. And it looks like desire. It's an androgynous being with their arms outstretched in like victory looking, with like their heart opened and exposed. And this is the realm. This is where desire lives.
Okay.
And desire lives alone. And they are referred to as he, she, they, all of them. Whatever they please. Desire walks through their gallery where there are all these sigils on the walls, and the sigils are for each of their siblings, because each of them have a version of this where they live in their realm, right? And what it is, it's a way for you to call upon the endless.
The endless, gotcha.
And so, like,
Okay.
Death has an Ankh, Destiny has a book, and then there's a mask for
Morpheus.
For Morpheus, right? There's a mirror for
Desire.
her, for Desire, of course. And then there is like a swirly thing, a blank wall, and then like this like ring that has like a horrifying pointy hook on the end of it.
Okay.
Okay.
That's the one she pulls off the wall, or they pull off the wall, and asks for their sister to come forth, Despair, because Desire and Despair are twins, but they look nothing alike.
Okay.
Despair is a like heavier,
Danny DeVito, hideous monster.
a heavier set female.
Oh, actually a female.
Actually a female.
Okay.
Who like has like a demonic underbite looking set of teeth, and often takes the ring that exact ring and like picks at their own flesh in Despair.
Okay.
There's a vortex. Despair's like, so you want to get Dream wrapped up in your machinations? That's how I heard it pronounced by British people.
We call it machinations.
Machinations, but it's literally that's what.
Machinations. Well,
Yeah, 'cause you mash things together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Machinations. Desire is paying attention to this whole vortex thing, and Despair's like, I have to think on this, and then leaves. And Desire's like, cool.
Yes, I've already sowed the
Good.
seeds of Progress.
So then we cut to a plane that is landing in England, where we find Rose Walker and her mother Miranda Walker.
Yeah.
Essentially, they're on a flight to England that was all expenses paid by some anonymous benefactor. They jump into this car. It's a big fancy
Rolls
car.
Royce.
Yeah. Miranda's like, oh, benefactor must have quite a bit of like money to be able to just pay for us to come across. Like, he must be quite wealthy. And they're like, yes, she is.
Oh.
And Miranda's like, oh. I think Miranda
Let me correct you right there.
I think Miranda thought like for a second like.
Oh, I was gonna. Yeah.
Yeah, because Miranda was married, but her husband is dead.
Okay.
Rose falls asleep in the background, as any good American around the ages of between 16 and 22 might. And I like this. We are going to do a turn, and we're going to do it for a little bit. But
yeah, but it's still
it is an earned one because we're going into the dreaming.
Yeah.
Through Rose. Rose falls asleep and enters the dreaming, and so we see what Rose sees by doing this.
Yeah.
So it skews.
It skews, and
cool.
and we do go on like that while we're in the dreaming for Rose right now, right?
Yeah.
We're at the House of Mystery, which there is a comic called that.
Yeah.
But we're at the House of Mystery where Lucian is there. Lucian, of course, is Dream's right-hand man and keeper of the library.
Yes.
Among other things. Quite, fastidious. And Lucian has been put in charge of cataloging and, surveying, censusing.
Gotcha.
Taking a census of every person who's left in the dreaming to make sure they're all still there.
Okay.
By person, I mean dream entity. He's interviewing Abel about who lives in the House of Mystery. So it's Abel, the house itself, the bottle imp, I believe, the unspeakable thing that lives in the sub-basement, okay. And of course the Goldie, the new gargoyle.
I'm sorry, the unspeakable thing that lives in the basement?
Yeah, can we meet that?
Yeah, no, it's an unspeakably nasty thing that lives in the sub-basement.
Oh, we don't speak of it.
Yes. Oh, no. Oh, we don't speak of that. Goldie is this new gargoyle chick that's shown up. And so okay, we got a new addition to the dreaming, right? So takes all these notes and he leaves. We follow Lucian through the dreaming, so we get of course an opportunity for Mike Dringenberg. Mm-hmm. Mike Dringenberg for me is what I think of when I think of art for
your
Sandman,
standard for Sandman
because it's
art.
and DC did decide to go this route after Keith left because Keith's art is much more fantasy and less conventional.
Yes.
And while this is still very not standard superhero style comic,
it is more what you're
close.
Used to at this time.
Yeah, but it just has such a distinct look, and for me it is just tied intrinsically to the universe of Sandman, even
Totally.
if Dringenberg doesn't do the bulk of Sandman. We switch off, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Inevitably. So anyway, so great opportunity to just see different areas and notice that what is Lucian doing the entire time? He's just counting. Right. He's literally counting 11,300 or 11,034, 11,035.
Ledger.
Yeah. So he's checking through them, right? Mm-hmm. We arrive in the Hall of Dream, where of course Morpheus is standing moodily in the corner, asking what tidings he brings. What do you got? You got is all tallied, is all worked out? What's going on? He's like, yes, there are 11,062 accounted for. A few minor things missing here and there, and some new things, of course, have arrived. And Morpheus is like, that's fine. That happens, not a big deal. And then he's like, however, 4 of the major arcana are indeed missing.
Oh.
And immediately Morpheus is just like, who are they? Name them.
Right.
You tell me now.
So who is missing from the dreaming? Brute and Glob, the Corinthian, and Fiddler's Green.
He said 4.
Brute.
Yeah, Brute and Glob.
Oh, Brute and Glob.
and Glob.
I consider them to be basically one
Yes,
entity.
but they're not. Brute and Glob,
Yeah.
the Corinthian, and Fiddler's Green. He's like,
Okay.
okay, cool. And immediately Morpheus is like, I blame myself for this. I wasn't here.
Right. Well, it wasn't your fault for not being here, but
Lucian's
whatever.
like, it's not your fault. And he's like, well, then whose is it? And Lucian has nothing to say. He's like, anyway.
Not mine, though.
He's like, by the way, as I was doing my census, a lot of the dream entities kept asking about, if you've heard of the vortex.
Right.
And I've been trying to keep it on the DL in case you didn't know about it. And he's like, of course I knew about it. I've already done all my research into it. It's not an it, it's a she. And if you look in the corner over there, you can see she's watching us right now.
Oh.
And I love this because Morpheus points to us in the panel.
We're the vortex.
We're not the vortex.
We're not. Comic books aren't the vortex.
We're not the vortex.
No, the readers are the vortex.
But I freaking love that.
Grant Morrison didn't write this. We're not the vortex.
Well, don't forget, whose eyes are we seeing through right now?
Right.
Rose Walker.
Oh, yeah.
Rose Walker is the vortex. Realizing that, she's like, oh my gosh,
I'm the vortex.
dreaming, and they're looking at me, but but I'm dreaming. I'm definitely dreaming.
Yeah.
And so she wakes up because they're there.
Okay.
Right? Oh, honey, put your shoes on.
We're at Grandma's.
We're at Grandma's. So they go inside the house, and in it, Morpheus mentions something like that, like she's an annulet.
Okay.
And she's like, what does that mean?
Right.
So she's like, hey, what's an annulet?
That means you only come here once a year.
Holdaway, who is the solicitor, goes like, oh, it's like a ring. Like,
okay.
That's what it is. She's like, I don't know, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
They go upstairs to meet their benefactor. The door opens up and there's just an old woman there. And she's like, hello, welcome. Thank you for coming all this way. It's awesome. It's great to see you, Miranda and Rose. Look at you. I can't believe you're here. I'm Unity Kincaid. Now, if you've been paying attention, in Preludes and Nocturnes, Unity Kincaid was the young girl who went to sleep and woke up how many years later, having had a baby. She basically goes like, look in the mirror, look at us.
Okay.
I'm your mom, Miranda.
Oh.
And Miranda's like, no, I knew my mom.
Mm-hmm.
You're not my mom. And she's like, well, let me explain it to you. Basically what ended up happening was that like she did have a baby and the family went and had it adopted out because like she was asleep.
Can't take care of it.
Yeah. Like, so like the baby was adopted out and that was the end of it. But when she woke up, she remembered having a baby.
Yes.
And so
she had to track down.
So she asked Holdaway about it, and Holdaway was like, no, you didn't. Like, he was trying to, like, keep her from it, because, like, it's tragic.
Yeah, exactly.
Rose is like, weird. It's really weird, too. I wonder if Mom will talk about Jed. Jed is her brother. Jed is not here. Rose goes out in the hallway to give Unity and Miranda a moment to, like, talk all this over that I just told you. When she comes out into the hallway, there's these 3 women there. There's a young woman, a matronly-looking woman, and, like, a crone.
Gotcha.
That is a straight up witch.
That's another word for a witch.
Don't even try and deny it.
Pointy hat, straw-like hair.
She's grimacing at us, and she has a crooked nose as if she's gonna eat us.
Okay.
Still profiling there, Ben, I gotta tell you.
Wow.
Well,
ouch.
let's throw her in the water and see if she floats.
Spoilers, they all float!
So, they're like, hey, Rose Walker.
Right.
And she's like, how do I know you? And they're like, you're at a crossroads right now, Rose. So she's like, who are you? And like one of them, the youngest, goes like, don't worry about names. This is a single aspect of the whole. You would not want to meet us were we the kindly ones. They give her an opportunity to ask a question.
Okay.
She essentially asks the wrong one. I can't warn you against the Corinthian or tell you of Jed or of Morpheus. So anyway...
Oh, you just did that.
Way to waste your wish.
Later, and she's like...
Are they like the witches from Macbeth?
Yes, they're like the Fates, they're like Hecate, they're like all kinds of things. Rose is like, she turns the light on, and she's in a broom closet. Mm-hmm. She's like, I am freaking out, right?
Yeah, you are freaking out.
Miranda comes out and is like, hey, we totally accepted things. There's this huge doll's house, by the way, that's like a copy, I think, of Unity's original home.
Yeah.
And in it, Morpheus is like watching.
Okay.
He's in there. He's like,
Oh.
Neat.
I'm involved.
I'm involved. Then Unity like goes like, oh my gosh, wait, I should give you something. You're my granddaughter.
Right.
So she takes a ring off that she has and she gives it to Rose.
Okay.
It doesn't have a hook on the end of it, does it?
No, it's a regular ring.
Okay, good.
No. We then...
Oh, it's the amulet.
It is an amulet, technically. We then cut to a really creepy scene of somebody being in a motel in the worst scenario that you could be in a motel. They're not going to make it.
Oh, okay.
But we don't need to know them.
But someone's doing something pretty messed up.
Someone be doing something.
Someone needs a kidney.
It's not a kidney they need. So we then cut to this issue called Moving In, which is done by Mike Dringenberg.
Moving In?
And Malcolm Jones III.
So I guess
I thought it was just a visit.
Yeah, nope.
No, Rose is moving into Florida.
Oh.
She left because...
She left England?
She left England, and she left Miranda with Unity to like care for her and to like have some time with her, right? And she left because like Unity was able to pay for some private investigators to help find her brother.
Jed.
Because this is not super well explained in here. Miranda and her husband had 2 kids, Rose and Jed. Jed and her father, or their father, went someplace.
Okay.
And Miranda and Rose, there was like a split, and somehow they got awarded
Dad
one
took the
kid.
son, mom took the daughter.
Jed and Rose's dad died.
Yeah.
And then like Jed came into the care of his grandfather, and then Grandpa died.
Right.
Because Grandpa was old. And then they kind of lost track of Jed.
That seems pretty irresponsible, but okay.
It is the 80s.
Oh, it's the 80s, so you know.
I don't know. Like,
it is
like
Reaganomics happening.
So Rose like got a lead, and so like she went there. So she moves into this like boarder's house. So Moving In is her getting to know Hal, who's running the house. Hal's a drag queen, and he is super fun and amazing, and I love him to death, right? Hal runs this whole place, as well as also like doing nightly shows. He does a lot of like, he dresses up like Dolly. That's what his persona is known as.
Okay.
And he sings Hello Dolly, and he does all these shows and stuff like that, right?
Doll's House, Dolly, yeah. Okay.
Yep. They run into Barbara and Ken, who prefer to be known as Barbie and Ken.
Naturally.
And they look the parts.
Yes.
Yep.
They run into the Spider Sisters. Zelda and Chantal. Chantal is the only one who speaks. Zelda murmurs and whispers to her sister, who speaks for her.
Okay. And Unity's funding this?
They're wearing veils, by the way.
Yes, they are dressed like in all white. Gaiman says that like the Spider Sisters are based off of like 2 women he met.
Oh, so we don't even know what the hell they are.
He's
Just
like, I'm
some shit he saw.
I don't even remember what they were, but they stood out in my mind, so here they
like,
are.
And he's like, and I couldn't tell if they were like sisters or lovers or something. You know what I mean? Like I didn't know what they were.
Right.
And so
Creepy.
here they are.
So here they are in the book.
They have the largest collection of stuffed spiders in private hands on the Eastern Seaboard. That's their claim to fame.
That's
So
probably not hard to
Unity's
achieve.
only funding her trip here, right?
Yeah.
So Rose, the only person she hasn't met is there's a guy in the attic whose name is Gilbert. So
I'm sure he's totally normal.
Gilbert lives in the attic, and she's like, eventually Hal's like, eventually you'll meet him. Rose.
Oh, and don't go in the basement. There's a horrible thing in the basement. We don't speak.
We don't speak of it, though.
It's an unspeakable thing that lives in the basement. No, and as Rose is laying down, she notices out her window is a raven. That raven will not leave. So now we cut to a page that's supposed to mimic like Nemo, like little Nemo in the Land of Dreams, but they couldn't copy it that much without having an issue, so they decided not to really do that.
Fair.
Where we run into the Sandman and Fury.
Okay.
From DC Comics.
From DC Comics, yes.
Oh, okay.
Who will certainly not be appearing in the Netflix show.
Well, there's a little boy there, and like they're flying with him, right?
Yeah.
And like that's when a hot air balloon comes by, and in the balloon are Brute and Glob, and they have like the Skooky Bird, and they're gonna ruin Jed and Lita, well, and Hector Hall, because that's who's the Sandman right now.
Yeah.
And they're good time. And they like the Skooky Bird like tickles Jed, and so he drops their hands because they're flying through the air, and he falls, and he wakes up in his reality where he lives in a basement in his own filth.
Aw.
Like he is this young boy who literally lives in the cellar with like nothing but a blanket and like peas in the corner.
Right.
And there's like rats and things. It's not good. And so he escapes to the world of dream. Jed ended up in the foster care system, right?
Yeah.
And ended up with this family, these two, who were somehow related or not to them, but like they like didn't treat him well, but they wanted the checks, of course. And eventually he tried to make a run for it at one point, and then when that happened, they put him in the basement and locked the door, essentially, and like
so he just lives there.
They give him the bare minimum to live, right?
Yeah.
He survives.
Bingo. And so like Jed often returns to the world of dreams in order to escape his reality, right? Rose takes some time to kind of talk about her roommates there and like, you know, how she feels like she's living in the Addams Family a little bit, but that it's fun and everybody seems very nice. So she does not yet know, I don't think, about the foster care system. She just knows about Grandpa, so she's like going from there, and she's still waiting to hear from the private investigators, but like she wanted to be in America ready to go, right?
Okay.
Meanwhile, the Raven turns out, of course, was Matthew, who is like a new addition, sort of new addition, newer.
To Morpheus' menagerie.
Right, well, he calls himself newer. He's like, I'm kind of new to this.
Right.
Who was there to surveil the vortex, of course.
Who is her?
Who is Rose. And so, like, Morpheus is like, that's fine, just keep an eye on her. I've got some other things to do. He's working on some new, like, nightmares right now. Rose goes to see Dolly's show, Hal, and really enjoys it. She's like, it's a lot of fun. She walks home, goes down an alleyway. It's dark. Some ne'er-do-wells show up and attempt to do what ne'er-do-wells do. They draw a knife on her. She's going to try to fight them, and that's when a becloaked, hatted man shows up and like fights them off with like some ridiculous language. You know, he's like, gentlemen, it would seem to me the young lady desires to retain both her purse and honor.
Okay.
So they like,
all right, V.
I was gonna say V.
He makes some quick work of them, and they leave. And then he introduces himself, and she's like, "You're Gilbert." And he's like, "I am." He came to see the show as well. And he's just revealed to be this like older gentleman with like glasses and like a little chain on said glasses. He's a larger gentleman, and like he's like, let me walk you home.
Okay.
And so,
I happen to be going that way.
yes, we cut back to Jed.
It would be awkward if we didn't.
Right. Yes. Thank you for saving me. Don't talk to me the rest of the way.
Yeah. Now let's just stand and.
Well, good night.
I'm going this.
I said good night.
Matthew reported about Jed, the fact that that's why Rose was there, and like Morpheus is like, if you can get me a photo of Jed, then I can try to find him and then try to beat her to it, essentially.
Why?
Because he feels like there's a lot of moving parts here, and he's like, there are definitely some things that like are in motion right now that I need to be paying attention to. So I need to know where Jed is.
Okay.
Because I mean, there's a vortex going on.
Right, that vortex, but that's who's a person.
Right.
That I'm already monitoring, but whatever.
So Matthew steals a photo, which upsets Rose, of course, because of the fact that like
that was the photo of her
she's
brother.
aware of this bird, and
Right,
also
and,
she's
like,
I need this photo to help find this boy.
There isn't like really digitization
No,
of photos.
that's the only photo. That's it. That's
Yeah.
gone.
the photo she has, and now it is gone, right? Gilbert shows up because there is a call for Rose, and essentially the call says that like, we know where your brother is.
Oh, okay.
And that like they're with this foster family, and so like you can come and
Let's go get him.
yeah, right.
You have to bring a photo though.
To prove. Morpheus gets the photo and goes like, okay. Morpheus will then try to find him and be like, I can't see him. What's up with that?
That's weird, since like you
He's
can
like,
reach any
"What's
living
going
creature
on,"
that
right?
can dream.
That is weird.
So then we cut to.
But then again, what's its face and Glob were in the dream with.
What's his face and Glob? Brute and Glob. I
Brute.
love his what's his face.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were in the dream with Jeb.
Right.
Jed.
So clearly, where they are, since they're lost, he's in a dream that Dream can't see.
Right.
Like what the hell?
So Morpheus like is thinking about that too, because he's like, all right, so Fiddler's Green is missing, Brute and Glob, and the Corinthian. All right, I gotta think on this one some more, right? Meanwhile, we cut to a like clearly bloodied hand making a phone call.
It's the hotel room.
While holding some eyeballs.
That's more than one eye or two eyeballs. There's multiple eyeballs
There's like 4 eyeballs there.
That's too many eyeballs to be seen.
It's like a lot of eyeballs, right? So this individual makes a call asking like, oh, is this Nimrod? Great. Like I hear you're having a get together for people who share a special interest, and I'd love to go. Rose is off. She's packed up. She's like, all right, Hal, I'll see you later. And like Hal's like, don't worry about it. And like, hey, when you get back, I'll have a room made up for Jed too. Like Hal is so cool, and I love him to death.
Aww.
I love Hal.
Hal will die a grisly, miserable death.
No.
Hal was turned inside out, unfortunately. There's an entire episode dedicated to it.
There's an entire issue just to Hal's death.
It's gruesome.
And the nightmare he has.
Rose said goodbye to everybody, but she couldn't find Gilbert, so when she goes outside, there's a car waiting, and Gilbert's there. He's like, I'm going with you.
I'm driving for you. Yeah.
We're going on an adventure, because you shouldn't be like going to, I believe it's
strange places.
Yeah, it's in Alabama, and he's like, you shouldn't be like traveling alone like in like America these days.
Fair.
So I'm going with you.
I don't really know you, but okay.
And she's like, no. And then you cut to them like in the car together.
Silent, because he's like, we're driving silence just like we walked in silence.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
No radio.
By the way, we cut back to Jed, and like another like thing is revealed that like he is chained to a wall.
Aww.
So he's not going anywhere, right?
Oh, jeez.
Not without biting his own leg off.
Exactly. Morpheus is brooding as like he's super brooding in this one. Like he's just so broody. I love it.
Good.
He's like, I found him.
Oh no.
Oh.
And I love this. He's just, how dare they? How dare they?
What do you care?
Brute and Glob essentially have created like a little mini dreaming.
Oh, that they keep him in.
Yes. And like
guarded him from Morpheus.
it's in Jed.
Right.
And so Morpheus is like,
ooh.
That's my job.
Yeah.
That's me.
Yeah.
That's not you.
You took my shtick.
Get out of here. So then like he gets himself ready to go. He is fuming.
Good.
Right?
That's fun. Okay.
And I love this moment because like, and it's my move, and he's like in the doorway, like, bam! His cape is more flamey than usual.
Oh no!
Which I'm gonna guess is like, to indicate his like,
level of fury.
Yeah, naturally.
Yep.
So now we're gonna jump into this
world.
This thing that's happening.
This thing that we're looking at here.
Thing. So let's talk a little bit about Hector Hall, Hippolyta, Trevor Hall, and Brute and Glob.
Yes.
Okay, so Brute and Glob and Hector Hall and Lita are all not creations of Neil Gaiman.
No.
Brute and Glob are from the 70s, created by Joe Simon and Jack Kirby.
Oh, cool. Okay.
in terms of the Garrett Sanford Sandman.
Right.
All right, so Garrett Sanford was
The
a
gas
Sandman.
mask, pistol wielding guy.
No, that's Wesley Dodd.
Oh, that's right.
Garrett Sanford looked like this.
Yes, he's a superhero.
Yes, and he had these two nightmare entities, Brute and Glob, that like hung out with him, right?
Right.
Until eventually Garrett Sanford like offed himself.
Oh.
I mean, his only friends were monsters.
All right, and so like we're dealing with a couple of things, and I don't want to give it away if you know your like Sandman lore
Right.
here, all right?
Or if you watched our Dark Knight's Metal episode.
Yes. But Hippolyta, we're dealing with
Not Wonder Woman's mother.
not her mother, and also not her daughter, because in pre-crisis there was a point where Hippolyta Trevor was the daughter of Wonder Woman and Steve Trevor, like way
Right.
back in the day.
Yeah.
This is a post-crisis version of her where she's not that.
Great.
At all, but still has a similar name.
Yeah.
But
Right.
not that. But she used to be Fury. She was the daughter of the previous Fury as
Okay.
well. And so like she kind of went into the like superhero business because of her mom, right? And she
Right.
inevitably met Hector, right? And like they kind of made sense, and like they fell in love and they got married, right? And then eventually she got pregnant. She's very much out of it for most of this, right? Like she's just kind of like brushing her hair. They're in the Dream Dome, right? Where like Hector's like, haha! Hector is very much like what people think of like Golden Age heroes to be. Like, okay, everybody, there's an alarm coming. Who is it this time?
Right,
Here
but,
we
like,
go.
You have like a not quite there pregnant wife.
Like wandering around the
around
Dream
your
Dome, and you've got
house.
Brute and Glob there, right?
And you have these two demons.
That kind of like goes away as Jed wakes up, and like his caregivers
Foster family, yeah.
his foster family brings him upstairs.
His captors, okay?
Right.
Yes, his captors bring
His
him
abusers, yes.
upstairs. There is a person coming from the welfare department, so you got to clean up, and we're going to give you this kid's room, and you're going to pretend like it's your room, and you're having a good time, or else. So he goes back into his dreaming, and like Brute and Glob go like, okay, so they've realized that Morpheus is coming.
Yeah.
And so like, all right, so what's the plan here? I mean, maybe Hector Hall will just take care of them, and they like, no. That's not gonna
No,
happen.
Hector ain't gonna win.
So like,
yeah.
what do we abandon it? Do we go someplace else? Should we like just make some like another thing? Like what's our plan here,
Yeah,
right? So like,
yeah,
they're
yeah.
trying to figure out their plan, but they are going to sick Hector on Morpheus.
Okay.
Okay.
So Sandman versus Sandman.
I don't know why, but Glob in my head sounds like Krang. I think because he looks like a little brain monster.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But essentially, they also mentioned the fact that it's like they specifically mentioned Sanford, that like, man, Hall is dumber than Sanford was.
Okay.
Hall's gonna get ready because he's like, hey, I gotta go. Like there's this other guy who's showing up. Like
I gotta fight him.
It's the Nightmare Monster. I have to go fight the Nightmare Monster. Brute and Glob gave me some info about him. So like, Lita's like, okay, have a good time.
Yeah.
Because like she's thinking about how like, you know, she wanted a lot more than what she has right now, didn't she? Like she was a hero, wasn't she? Like,
And she becomes what, like her costume kind of appears.
yeah, like she sees herself in the mirror. She just brushes her hair. Hall finds Morpheus. He's like, you know, be clothed.
He's wearing his crazy ass
He's got the
fucking
helmet,
face.
right? It's like it's the sigil, who he is. Like that's part of like who he is as like as a being. Jed is sitting upright in the basement. He's like, something's wrong with my head. Someone has to help me. So, like something is wrong, and I'm scared. And it's really sad and it's heartbreaking to read.
Yeah.
Because it's just this little boy who's terrified. And
his world is coming apart.
He lives in squalor.
Yeah.
And now
now it's coming
he
apart.
can feel it because
Yeah.
Morpheus has arrived, right?
Right.
For a minute, Brute and Glob consider going up and killing Barnaby and Clarice, who are the people who are keeping Jed,
Yeah.
and like carving their insides out and going into their skins and just living like that.
Okay.
And then
How
like,
would they get there?
what?
How would they get there?
They're in Jed.
They could just jump out of him, I guess.
They can physically come out of him?
Yeah.
Ah!
Well, you
So-
see, he has no regard for human life, so it's like he would just, if he was looking for you, he'd just interrogate them and destroy you.
Right. So Morpheus is like talking to this dude who's like, Hall is just going off. He's
Right,
just
he's like, you brute, I'm going to destroy you.
Yes, exactly. And he's
Uh-huh.
like, how about this? Like, he tries his, like, dream, like, his ultrasonic whistle, which is just a whistle. And he's like, okay, not that. How about a cartridge of dream sand? And, like,
Morpheus
Morpheus
is like,
are you just gonna, like, tuck yourself out? Or,
right, what are we doing
Or,
here?
like, what, right? And so he's like, Morpheus finally goes, like, who are you?
Right, what is this?
And he's like, I am the Sandman! And he, like, explains. And then Morpheus laughs. And this is the only time in the entire series Morpheus will laugh. And he's like, okay. You're the Sandman? Oh my gosh. All right. Well, I did not see that one coming. But,
Oh, this is funny. You're gonna laugh when you hear this, because I am also the Sandman.
he goes like, oh, he's like, humanity, I love you. From like the basement where Clarice and Barnaby are like in the kitchen above, the door is burst open, and in the basement is Jed and Brute and Glob and Lita and Hector Hall, and they're all just there. Yeah, I believe that explosion kills Clarice and Barnaby.
Oh, okay.
Good.
Great.
10 out of 10. They deserve
I like
worse.
how it's funny.
They deserved worse.
You'll see that occasionally, right? Like where these are tormentors. They're people that you want to see get their just desserts, but like to illustrate how they're not important.
Yeah, or worthy of anything.
Or worthy of anything.
Of that much thought.
They die like practically off panel.
They die completely off panel. Brute and Glob are like, oh no.
Oops.
Oh, I figured it out. Brute sounds like Patrick from SpongeBob. So you have Krang and Patrick.
There we go. Perfect.
God. Morpheus is like, well?
Explain yourselves. Explain yourselves.
Brute and Glob go like, okay, so here's the thing. You were gone for like a real long time. So we basically were like, what if we made our own Dream King and our own dreaming? So we left. And meanwhile, we found this guy, Hector Hall. Well, first we found Garrett Sanford, but that didn't really work out. And he lost it because he couldn't handle it.
Right.
And so he killed himself.
Okay, great.
So then we were like, all right, hang on, let's take two. So basically they were like, what if we got someone who was dead first? Maybe that would cause them not to lose their mind. So that's when they turned to Hector Hall. So if you know your pre-crisis Hector Hall, he was Silver Scarab. He's the son of Carter Hall and Shaira.
The Hawk people.
Yes.
But didn't turn into a hawk person.
No, it's not a Hawk person. He was the Silver Scarab.
Yeah.
And so they
I reject your hawk manity.
Now I'm a scarab, but it's still gonna be Egypt themed.
And I can still fly.
And then he died.
Yeah.
And so when he died, Brute and Glob grabbed his soul and put it into Jed.
Okay.
And then basically
dressed him like this.
Yeah, we're like, you're the Sandman now, and Hippolyta was able to come with him.
Okay. But she was alive.
And pregnant.
And they were just like, yeah.
Yeah, and they put her in there too.
Okay.
Oh.
So he's dead. She's alive with child.
Yep.
But stuck in his head.
Stuck
so
in
can't
Jed's head.
she conceive.
Yep. So she could not,
finish
give birth. And Morpheus is like, okay.
I don't care about any of those things.
I'm gonna clean up all of this. And he's like, so there's a lot of things we got to do here. So he sends them, Brute and Glob, to the darkness.
What is that? The Great Darkness that Josh Williamson's using in The Dark Crisis?
I don't know. They don't want to go. They're very upset.
The darkness.
And he's like, so that takes care of that. Now we have to deal with Hector.
Right. Who is a disembodied soul that's trapped in a child's mind.
Well, no, yeah, he's
out now.
He's just a ghost, essentially, right? And so he's like, oh yeah, no, I'm Hector Hall, and he just goes into it. He's like,
right, this is my origin story. This is my trading card. Yeah.
And he's like, okay, it's not. You can't. The dead cannot walk the earth.
Right.
And so you must go. And so he banishes him.
Where?
Away. He sends him to.
He sure doesn't care.
He sends him to the realm of death.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah.
That's where you're supposed to be.
My sister will take care of that.
Yeah, you're gone. So Lita is like.
The fuck?
You killed my husband, and he's like,
no, he was already dead.
Exactly.
Yeah, I fixed it. I fixed the glitch. So you won't be having a husband anymore.
You should count yourself lucky for the 2 extra years you had with him. This woman has been pregnant for 2 years and 6 months.
Right. But she's only had her mental faculties for probably 1.
So she's like, no, you killed him, and he's like, fine, whatever, that's fine.
You want to blame me? You go ahead and blame me.
Yeah, you'll never meet me again.
So she goes to lunge for him. She falls. He's like, hey, you should be careful because you're pregnant. Oh, by the way, since you gestated so long in the dreaming, when your child is born, one day I will come for him. He is mine. He is of the dreaming, because it is rare to have a child gestate in the dreaming.
Okay, that doesn't entitle them to you, though.
According
to my made-up bullshit rules, it does.
According to Morpheus, it does.
Right, and I'm an endless, so you can't argue with me.
And this is an important child.
Yes. I unfortunately know the end of that story because of
this is an important child.
Machinations.
Yes.
But yeah.
But Lita essentially goes over my dead body.
Right. She's not gonna give him
I can get that covered.
Yeah. Well, my sister will show up and fix that for me.
Morpheus, by the way, was like, but Jed, you're free. He just lets him run away.
Oh, off you go, kid.
Because Morpheus is not responsible.
I don't care about these things. Oh, by the way, I also want a child.
But not that one. I don't have rights to that one.
Oh, right. But
I have rights to this one.
Yeah, but only by virtue of your made-up nonsense.
Because I know I need this
I also want to get rid of Jed because, hey, you had a little, recluse dream inside your head that was not part of my realm, so I'm not a fan of you anyway.
Right, exactly.
It's not his fault.
Get out of here.
But he also knows that he's involved with Rose. So then Jed's running along, and he ends up on the side of the road. It is pouring outside. The car stops. He's like, "You okay, kid?" He's like, "Where are you going?" He's like, "Anywhere. I don't care." And he's like, "Well, come on in. I'm going anywhere."
Oh, Jesus.
And he's like, "Can you see with those sunglasses on?" He's like, "Sure, kid. I can see everything." And you're like, "Oh no."
Yeah, because I collect eyes. Because I'm the fucking Corinthian. Great.
So real quick, I'm not going to go super in depth into this one, but there's a really random issue in the middle of this, and it's freaking dope.
Okay.
Like, it is random AF, but it isn't. Okay, it is an important issue that introduces an important character and sets up something that will be paid off in Dream Country. Circa 68, 69, something like that.
13, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Death and Morpheus are in England.
Sure.
Death likes to like hang around sometimes. Death, in
There's
fact,
also a lot of death in England at that time.
but like Death likes to just hang around like humans.
We've seen, Death likes humans. She thinks they're fun.
Yeah, she's like they're neat, right? So like they go to this tavern, right? And there's like she's having a great time. Morpheus is
being
like
a pill, like always.
Like usual, right? And
They're also dressed a little upper echelon-y.
well, yeah. Well, Morpheus isn't going to dress any
Well, they
other
got to
way.
update their looks. That's what Death looks
Yeah, but
like.
they're dressed like lords, like a lord and lady. He's like, of
Yeah,
course.
not peasants.
Right.
So like they're there, and like there's like in the corner, there's like all these guys talking, right? And there's this one dude who's talking. He's like, and what he's talking about is the fact that he's like, people only die because they accept it.
Oh.
Morpheus is like,
What an idiot.
Morpheus is like trying to talk about something else.
Morpheus is going on and on about
hey,
his
a
goddamn
delegation
sand.
of fairies came to me last night. They're thinking about leaving. And she's like, dude, shut up. I want to hear
Shut
this.
up.
Oh, this is hilarious.
These guys are talking about my business.
Yeah,
It's
like,
like when
come
you
on.
overhear someone who knows something that you know about.
Yeah, like I'm like the expert.
Yeah.
This is fucking amazing.
I'm pretty
right?
sure the house elf is named Dobie, right? It's Dobie.
Essentially, the group end up leaving this gentleman because they're just like, okay, whatever. And he's like, listen, that's fine. I figure you guys are all gonna die because you're a lot stupider than
But
me.
I'm
Like,
never gonna
I'm
accept
not gonna,
it.
I'm not gonna. I won't accept it, right? And like Dream looks at him, he's like, this could be interesting. And she's
Right.
like, and Death goes like, all right,
You're
like,
on.
You're gonna tell him or am I? And he's like, I'll do it. So she leaves. She just fades away, right?
Okay.
Morpheus goes over to him and like meets him, and this is where the first time we meet Hob Gadling. Morpheus goes like, so you have no intention of dying, like ever? And he's like, nope,
I mean, most of us don't, but fair enough.
no, I will have no part of that.
Right.
And he's like, okay then, how about this? And his name's really Robert Gadling, but everyone calls him Hob. All right. Morpheus refers to him as Robert because he's Morpheus.
Because it's like, that's your name.
Yeah. He's
what it
like,
says.
how about this? I'll meet you here in 100 years. And he's like, okay, I'll see you then. Everyone's like, "Brah!"
Okay.
So we cut to 100 years later.
Right. And he hasn't died.
And they meet. And he's like, okay, so what are you? A wizard, a saint, a
Right.
devil?
What is
are you?
this?
And he's like, nope, I'm just interested. He's like, I see you haven't died. He's like, no, I haven't. It's great.
Yeah, I said I didn't and I won't.
Yep. I'm just so stubborn I won't die.
Exactly. But like things are like looking a little bit up for him. Like he's not as like ragged as he was.
Yeah.
right?
No. Well, he's lived longer, so he's had like more access and
Yeah,
longer.
yeah.
I see. He also doesn't age.
No. And so eventually, like by the end of the conversation, like Morpheus is like, another 100 years? He's like, sure, why not? So another 100 years passes. They meet in the tavern again. Hob is doing quite well for himself. He's quite moved up in like the echelon of society, right? Now
Yeah.
he's Sir Robert Gadlin.
Oh.
He has good fortune. He has a family, right? You know, like a wife and a son
Probably had like several.
that he knows of. That he says. He says that legitimately.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Had the queen to his house, like everything is going great. In the corner, William Shakespeare and Marlowe are speaking because at the
Okay.
time, Marlowe is actually like at the top.
Yes.
And Shakespeare is not.
No.
Morpheus like takes an interest, right? And like
Oh, in what they're talking about.
Yeah, and
He's
at
like, get away from me, you boring old man.
he's like, hang on a second.
Yeah,
I gotta,
shut up,
I
I'm
gotta
listening to
talk.
these more
And like
interesting people.
at this time, like he's not William Shakespeare, he's William Shakespeare.
Okay.
And he's like, so you want to write great plays, like, you know, that like spurred new dreams? And he's like, let us talk. And so off they go.
Yeah.
Dream Country.
Oh, so we see the fruits of Dream and Shakespeare's conversation in a fourth volume.
Yes.
Okay.
In the third volume.
Third volume.
In the next one, right?
Okay, cool. Great.
But now we cut to another 100 years, right? Where like Morpheus is waiting in the tavern, but there's no Hob Gadling. Hob Gadling comes in, but like he almost isn't allowed in because his fortune has taken a turn for the worse.
Okay.
It's done a total 180, right?
Yeah.
Essentially, what happened was, you know, people started catching on that he wasn't aging. Even
Yeah.
though he tried to come back as his own son. Like it was. No, he's done that already. It didn't work out.
Okay.
And so like they tried to like, you know, kill him as a witch.
Yes.
But it didn't work.
Yeah, his wife died in childbirth, and his son died, like, in a tavern brawl. At this point, Morpheus is like, so clearly you seek the respite of death. And he's like, not at all. Well, he's like, another 100. I'll see you then.
You don't understand. I gotta get my fortune back.
I gotta play this table gets hot again.
Yeah.
So we go forward again. A woman and two, like, gentlemen show up at the inn that they're supposed to be at.
What would be the tavern? Yeah.
And the tavern is holding this meeting. They show up
It's still a tavern. This is a long-running business.
yeah.
It does change over time, but it is a long-running business. Hobb has fixed up his life yet again. He's gotten into like some dirty business he really shouldn't be in, which Dream was like, don't do that. But that's when the woman and the two men show up, and this is the reason I want to mention this is because this is when Johanna Constantine comes in.
Now, who in the book is Johanna Constantine?
Johanna Constantine is like the great whatever of
John
Constantine. And she has interest in supernatural
occult.
things as well.
Right.
No kidding.
And like they like have heard tell of like basically like an immortal man and like the devil meeting, and so she assumes that's who they are.
So they're there to watch this happen.
Yeah, and like she wants to take them.
Oh.
And like learn from them.
Okay.
Shireen puts them like the two goons she has to sleep, and then does the same to her, and like puts her into this like dream. Inevitably, Morpheus and Hobb have a meeting, and like Hobb essentially is like, I think you do this because like you seek friendship, you're lonely, and
Right.
like Morpheus is like, screw
How dare you?
How dare you imply that I need companionship of a mortal?
Right.
Gross.
Okay, Rick.
Like no. And so then like Hobbs like, all right, well how about this? In 100 years, if you show up, I'll know I was right.
Right.
And so 100 years go by, and yep, sure enough.
He's there, and he's like,
Yeah.
hey, buddy.
And like Morpheus.
Damn it.
And this is
Gonna burn all this down now.
But so this is Morpheus has already had that conversation with Death, and so he's a little more empathetic, and so he does mention being friends with him.
Okay.
Of course, now, if you were reading this book, at the end of the last issue, there's like this weird white empty box, which is like, why did they lay the panels out?
Oh, I know. That's, yeah.
It was supposed to say like,
In the next issue.
like no, because Morpheus at the end of this says like, I can't stay any longer. I have an appointment I have to get to. I have a pressing engagement. I cannot miss. And like it says something about that. Whoever was putting the book together was like, but that's not the name of the next issue. So they just took it out.
Well, what about the reprint?
Oh, they did. The prior engagement. Hooray!
Yay!
So they put it back in the reprint. They put back the prior engagement, which is not the name of Men of Good Fortune.
Right.
But like, yeah, when people picked up the next issue, they're like,
What the hell is this?
Did I miss something? What I thought we were dealing with like Rose Walker.
And the Corinthian and stuff.
And stuffs.
No, let's take an interlude.
Yes, but like without that,
This is intermission.
they didn't pick up the fact that like we were going to do that, right?
Yeah.
So the rest of the book we will just be dealing with it. This issue is written beautifully. The way in which he describes like the wind, he calls it a bitch wind. It's a nice sharp, a cutting, and it like blue, bad, and cold. And
Cool.
It's just.
Yeah, he's a poet.
Mwah.
Yeah.
But like folk are checking in for this convention, and they're like, you know, there's all sorts of like little conversations happening in the lobby.
Right? About like the Honey Nut Cheerios, whether they should go to Frosted or
It's
whatever.
like there's all sorts of like people here. There's like this little like shrimpy guy.
Look at this real account. You know Gaiman is like, I want you to come with me to a comic book convention in 1989.
He came up with this idea at a convention.
Yeah, there's no way. Look at this.
Yeah.
It's like, you got to come to Comic-Con in
Look at these
1988.
Yeah.
You need to take pictures and draw these people.
Right. So the little guy's looking for the Family Man. He's like, anyone seen the Family Man, right?
Who the hell's the Family Man?
So all right. So there's no.
General
I'm
Mills?
not gonna really like bury the lead here. This is not a serial convention. It is a serial convention with an S. This is a serial killer convention. And so when the Corinthian called earlier about this like get together for people who have similar interests, he's talking about what they determine as collectors, right? And so why does this exist?
So it's about to get dark, is what you're saying.
Yes, now it's going to get dark. So why does this exist?
Because people are creeps.
Because the world sucks.
Because in the 80s, like Gaiman looked at
Like the Soldier of Fortune conventions and stuff.
at serial killers in general in culture, and how they hadn't like there wasn't like this huge fascination with it, but like he could see it coming because
Yes.
like documentaries were like had existed at that point, and like
Son of Sam had already happened.
Jeffrey Dahmer,
things that had
Johnny
already
Gacy,
happened, and he
they were
like,
celebritizing
he
them.
was like starting to see that they were going to start becoming like cool or interesting and stuff like that, and so he made this as like a parody of
Right,
that.
like a cautionary thing. Like,
And I will say he apparently did significant research. Not that there was a lot out there, but he did what he could with it to learn as much about it as he could to make this as real as possible.
right. Is it also a parody of like comic book conventions? Where he's like,
Yeah,
"They
because he's
suck."
like, yeah,
Well, they're held in like the lobby of a hotel.
Yeah.
yeah, well, he was at a convention, and he's like, you know, for like things that like the only reason that these people who are like all totally different come together is over this like fanaticism for this one thing. So why couldn't serial killers have that?
True. Yeah. No.
So that's
and
where we're at.
Because it's illegal and terrifying?
Additionally, the reason the Corinthian is called the Corinthian is like technically a Corinthian is like a person who would like frequent like whorehouses, and that's not what the Corinthian is.
Right.
But like the Corinthian also references like, you know, like columns and like Corinthian leather, and like it's a word to make things seem cool, and that's kind of what the Corinthian is supposed to be. It's like he's supposed to be cooler than he is.
Okay.
All right.
That's fun. All right, I like that.
So anyway,
Like the Merovingian.
Yeah.
it's Nimrod. Like,
Oh, the guy that the Corinthian was talking to on the phone?
Yes, like is looking for the family man, right? And like there's a guy at this table. His name is Funland.
Funland? Like Bob Funland?
It was supposed to be Disneyland, but right before they went to print, they're like, we can't do that.
That's fair.
Like, even
We will get flamed.
Gaiman was like, we can't do that.
Right, like
No.
I'm
No.
just gonna avoid
And
it.
so like he went from having mouse ears to having wolf ears.
Oh,
They're not
okay.
bat ears.
They look like cat ears,
Yeah,
but okay.
they're supposed to be wolf ears, so he's Funland.
Funland. Wait, so what is Funland? Does
guy- he's
he
a-
work at Funland?
So everyone here is going by code names because that's all they're allowed to do. They're only allowed to go by their code name, right?
Yeah.
At the serial convention because it's too dangerous. They're
Yeah,
meeting all
if
in
you
one
use
place.
your real name, like, this is someone we've been tracking for a long time. The FBI would be all over this shit.
Yeah.
They do like it's like a registration at like a con.
Yeah, we're watching
so
how
you
it
come
works.
in, you get your badge, you get your packet, you get all of that, right?
Yeah.
But like Nimrod's really trying to find this one particular person, right? Because it's basically like the keynote speaker
Oh, okay.
at the convention is going to be the family man.
Okay.
And like they can't find him. So now they have no like speaker, right?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the Nimrod wants to talk to the manager of the convention, who's actually reading like a porno magazine. And essentially he's like,
I assumed that was the family man.
no.
He was reading like a bondage magazine about like tying people up.
Nope, that's just who he's just like, whatever. The manager's like, yeah, like, you know, you're good. The only problem is we actually gave out one of the rooms to someone else. But like, don't worry, they promised they'd stay in their rooms.
Right.
And like, Nimrod's like, okay, like they need to
Right.
stay
Oh,
out of
crap.
the
That's gonna be a
convention
problem.
area.
Yeah. Everyone else is pretty much on the same page.
Because Rose and Gilbert are staying in the hotel,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Now, and so Rose is in one room, Gilbert's in another room.
Okay.
So she goes over to
I
Gilbert.
thought they gave one room.
No.
Two? Unspeakable.
Because they're like bored out of their minds because like they were supposed to be gone. They
Yeah.
said they were going to stay one night, and then the police called, which Nimrod is like, oh shit.
Right.
So why did the police call? Because they went out to go
the house.
to the house, and they found that like
It's
Clarice
in shambles and
yeah.
they're dead.
And there was no sign of Jed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't that mean Jed is at the hotel with them?
They found out that they were dead and that Jed was missing. So now they don't know what to do, but now they're like involved in this investigation. So the police are like, you cannot
Stay
leave.
there,
You
yeah.
have to stay there. And the hotel manager was like, I can't go against the cops.
hands
and so
are tied.
Nimrod's like, okay, fine.
Right.
Like,
We'll just work around
we
it.
can't have the cops here, so fine. So then like Rose is bored, and so Gilbert's like, let me tell you a story. I'm gonna tell you the story of Little Red Riding Hood. And it is
Fucking Neil Gaiman. Well, in the middle of the story, let me tell you a story.
and of course it can't be like
Any
normal-
story
a
or
nice
a
story.
happy story.
It's,
No.
it's like more of like the original version of it.
It's
right?
probably worse than the original.
Certainly more horrible.
The wolf kills grandma and then like slices her flesh and drains her blood.
Oh my god.
And then like Red Riding Hood shows up and the wolf goes into bed and does the whole thing, and like he's like, hey, eat and drink. So she has like the wine.
But it's the blood of grandma.
And the meat. And so she eats and drinks her grandmother, right? And then he goes like, hey, you know, you should come like into bed with me. Like, you know, like take off your clothes
Oh my god.
and come into bed with me.
Gross, Grandma.
And,
Right.
and like she's like, okay, like what do I do with my skirt? And he's like, throw it into the fire. You don't need it anymore.
Yeah.
It is like,
What the hell?
and so
Also,
like
this is like
she-
already
and so
really
she gets-
inappropriate because like
she
it's an
gets
older
in-
man with a younger girl.
She gets
like-
into bed and then he eats her.
Okay.
And like Rose goes,
Why
Gilbert,
did you tell me that?
that is horrible.
He's like, it's not over.
And Gilbert
There's
goes,
more.
he goes like, he's like, I'm afraid so, but there are worse versions of it.
Uh huh.
It's like he's telling her a cautionary tale,
Right.
right? So the Corinthian arrives in all of his Corinthian
Douchebaggery.
glory. This is the Corinthian.
Yeah.
Okay, like that's what he looks like. Mm-hmm. Is
Yeah.
just
He's the
ta-da.
Ferris Bueller of this awesome convention. What a douche.
Nimrod checks in with Funland, or he calls him Fun. He's like, "How you doing, Fun?" And Fun's like, "It's Fun Land, not Fun, Fun Land." And he gets really upset. I
Because
love this.
they're all like egotists.
I love Dringenberg like playing with this because it's like broken post-it note of like him like cracking inside for a second, like being upset
Right,
about
we're
it.
seeing like who
it's-
they truly are.
It's dope, right?
Yeah, that's awesome.
And he's like, I'm sorry, I'm just so like, you know, like, we don't have a speaker anymore, like, because the family man's not here, we can't find him. He hasn't checked in, like he's
Yeah,
just not
yeah.
here. And he's like, what? All right, like we have to have someone. Like, who are the big names? Who do we have? So Funland starts listing them off. He's like, we got Moon River, the Candyman, That's like the one from Connecticut, the guy with the candy canes. He's like, the lip collector is here.
They're all euphemisms until we get to the lip collector.
Yeah, so like, we need the guest of honor, right? Like, who's it going to be? And that's when the Corinthian shows up, and he's like, I'm here to register. And they're like, what's your name? He's like, the Corinthian. And they like basically shit themselves.
Right.
Because the Corinthian has been a serial killer for decades and decades. And they're like, wow, he seems a lot
Really
younger than
younger.
he should be.
Yeah.
Like,
I just started
I was
young.
expecting a younger man. So they kind of assume that maybe there's just been other Corinthians. Maybe,
Okay,
right?
he's the Dread Pirate Roberts, yeah.
But like, they
Well,
like...
there have been many Corinthians. There's a whole city of Corinth.
Yeah, like Funland's like shaking as he's trying to find his like name badge because like he registered, but nobody thought he'd show up.
Sure.
So then like essentially Nimrod's like, will you be like
Our keynote speaker?
our guest of honor? And he's like, yeah, all right,
Right.
I'm down for it.
You want to honor me? Sure.
I love this.
Whoa.
Love this treatment page for the credit. This is the title. It's collectors, right? Nimrod has to give a speech, just welcoming everybody. It's like the hey, kicking it off kind of thing, right? He has an internal monologue. It is spectacular. I'm not going to repeat it for you, but like it is, it's disturbing.
Yeah.
But everyone is in this issue. So then eventually he's like, hey, like here are the rules. Like no civilian names, just your monikers.
Yep.
Don't shit where you eat. You cannot kill anyone within here.
Yeah.
Until you're at least 200 miles away from this place. Otherwise, this will all be...
They'll blow it all up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone's like, oh.
Oh, I had big plans.
And they're like, oh, and by the way, like, here's like our guest of honor. They call him the Eye Guy, the Dark Angel, the Shades, the Corinthian. Everyone's like, oh shit, it's the Corinthian, right?
Yeah.
And then the entire convention floor shits themselves.
Yeah, just.
They're like, I told you not to.
I told you not to shit where we eat. We're not.
I thought you were talking about murdering people. No.
No, I mean literally. I had a big surprise for you.
Serial killers are notoriously
now we
incontinent.
can't have it.
Yeah.
Well, they're so excitable and nervous. It gets it into a lot of what is that?
Irritable bowel syndrome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
IBS.
IBS.
One of them should be like a fridge salesman, like a chest freezer.
I don't know why I'm here.
Who has
but
no idea?
I was invited.
Yeah, he's just like,
You
I don't know
guys-
why, but I sell a lot of these.
I guess you need it for milk because you guys like cereal.
You guys
Yeah.
love this stuff.
The guy who's looking at the film listing is like spoken to by another individual who's like, oh, what are you looking at? He's like, oh, I'm looking at the film stuff. And he's like, cool. He's like, I feel like I've seen you before. He's like, you're that doctor. Wow, I didn't expect to see you here. And that guy's like, oh shit, like he knows who I am.
Right.
And he's like, who are you? And he's like, the guy who asked him originally was like, I'm the bogeyman. The doctor is like, I've heard of you. And he just goes, he mentions that he's been christened Flay by Night. And then he looks at him and he goes, 79. And the bogeyman goes, what? And he's like, isn't that your thing? Like, give me a number. Give me your number. And he's like, oh, right. And he describes her.
Oh, like, which one is number 79?
Yeah.
Yikes.
And then he's like, hey, have you ever heard of a magazine called Chased? And like the Flay by Night guy's like, yeah, whatever. We learn about the doctor, and it's really funny that earlier you mentioned skin leather, because the doctor's thing, his collectible, is he collects leather neckties that he makes himself. And he wears a new one every time he has a press conference.
Great.
Who are you wearing today?
Flay by Night introduces also another person named Dog Soup. The only reason I mentioned this is because I always like found this, there's like something cheeky about that, because like it's Dog Soup, and like Bogeyman goes like, Dog Soup is a woman? Jesus. Like, I'm like, oh, okay.
That's funny.
What? I don't even know what Dog Soup does.
Right.
But damn, we see some of the panels, right? Like, and we'll check in on those occasionally. I'm not going to get into that. What I will get into is like Rose and Gilbert are going to get, I think, some food. They're in the elevator. The elevator door opens up, and in walks the Corinthian and Flay by Night. Gilbert has a visible reaction to the Corinthian.
Right.
And like puts his hat up and like tries to hide.
Yep.
And like the Corinthian and Flay by Night get out of the elevator, and Rose leans over and she goes, some of these cereal nuts are kind of cute. You see that guy?
No!
They go outside, and they were gonna go someplace, and Gilbert goes like, okay, here's what I need you to do. Okay, so
Get in the car and drive away forever.
he pulls
The car. Oh no, the car got.
Oh,
fixed.
yeah,
they
that's
got
right.
no car.
Get any car.
So he pulls out a notebook, and he like grabs a pen, and he writes something on it, and he hands it to her, and he goes like, listen, do not read this, but don't say it aloud. And if something bad, if things get bad, call that name.
Right.
And
Okay.
may God have mercy on us all. And she's like, okay.
Cool.
And we see some more of the panels. I love it. There's just this crazy looking people. Obviously, that's supposed to be Manson.
Yep.
Naturally.
Feel free to read all this stuff. It's all worth
Yeah,
reading because
read
it's
it.
all ridiculous.
This is a comic book. Enjoy it.
Meanwhile, Flay by Night was having a conversation with the Corinthian.
Oh, in the elevator.
Yeah, and that he's just like, you know, I've never met the bogeyman, but I can tell you right now that was not him. We have someone here who's not meant to be here.
Oh. Like
and
the person that he met earlier who says, I'm the bogeyman.
And the Corinthian's like, we should tell Nimrod. So Corinthian goes into the panel, pulls out the bogeyman, right?
Yeah.
And like they shove him into a room, and essentially they reveal the fact that he isn't the bogeyman. So they find out that his name is Philip, right? And he's the guy who edits Chased magazine, which is a magazine about serial killers. And so he came to this thing because he had somehow met the bogeyman at one point, which, by the way, how do I know this? Because James Tynion IV is currently writing a book called Nightmare Country, in which Philip Sitz is mentioned, and we talk about him because if you're going to write a story about the Corinthian, you're going to probably mention this, right?
You better know your history.
Yeah.
So we get a little bit more into that about how he got here, but eventually he found his invitation. He invited himself.
Gotcha.
And so like he's like, no, I'm one of you guys. Come on, like I'm definitely one of you guys. Come on, like
look at my magazine.
Like I write the magazine.
Have you killed anyone?
No. Right?
Then no.
And he's like, yeah, but like I like females are insects and created for male pleasure, like that kind of thing. Like he just spouts what he thinks they're about.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, see, that's not what it is.
Right.
And like they explain to him what it is actually about, right?
Yeah, great.
So then they take him, they put him in like Corinthian's car, and they're like, why don't we put him in the trunk? He's like, Corinthian's like, I got something in the trunk already.
Oh, jeez. Right, the boy.
They take him out to like somewhere else, even though they said they
better drive 200 miles out.
They didn't. But Nimrod is there. They're like, we have to deal with it. So it's Nimrod, Flay by Night.
I'm gonna give you a special pass, 50 miles.
And the Corinthian, and basically they string him up and they proceed to take turns.
Right.
And that's the last of Philip Sitz.
Well, there you go. That's the end of that magazine too.
Sure. Yeah. There's a disco there, because it's this time period at the hotel.
Sure, yeah, that's a thing.
And like the serial convention has that as well. Funland is talking to one of the other killers there.
What?
And they're talking about where they like to hunt. And that like this guy likes to hunt at like discos, and like Funland's like, I'd never do that. Like I have a place, like it's a beautiful place, it's a perfect place, and like
it's a happy place, it's a whole giant place.
You're just singing It's a Grand Old Flag.
Yeah, no, sorry.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place where little children wander off on their own and get lost. And you're like,
yeah.
If what you're thinking is what this is,
that's what
I don't have to talk about it any longer. This is also why they don't want to say Disneyland, because they're like, and like, if something happens, they hush it up because they don't want people to find out. They want people to keep going, so they make it go away.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's why Neil Gaiman's like, don't put that in.
Holy crap.
Yeah, it's telling you.
Like maybe Disneyland is complacent in the like abduction of children.
Yeah, Rose goes to the disco, or she wants to. Funland stops her. He's like, you're not, this is part of the convention.
Don't go here.
And she's like, oh, I thought because it was just the disco, it'd be fine. So she's like, that's fine, like, I'll go. So she leaves, and like, as she leaves, Funland turns to the guy who's Moon River and goes like, how old do you think she was?
Too old.
And he's like, I don't know, 17, maybe 18. And he goes like, I don't know, she looked younger than that, much younger.
Yeah.
And you're like,
no.
Look at this whole section here. I'll leave it up to you to read it. It's Neil diving in a little bit more into the psyche of serial killers and what they look for and like different types. Like there's one guy talking to another guy about their numbers and how like this one guy like has like like 171, and this guy has 8 because he's known as the connoisseur. And he looks for something very specific.
Right.
The Corinthian crew like are headed back. Nimrod's like, what an honor this was to kill with you.
Right.
Like to do this with you, Corinthian. How amazing, right?
Sure.
Rose goes to visit Gilbert. He's gone. There's a note. And she's like, thanks for bailing on me.
Aww.
Right?
Yeah.
We see the panels, including one of like women in serial killing. It's like, I love this panel, and I want to mention it just because...
That's Women in Comics. That's a panel at every major convention every year.
It's spectacular, too, because it's like the Grass Widow, Dog Soup, and Dark Angel. Dog Soup is talking, and she's like, I'm just sick of, like, I'm tired of being stereotyped as Black Widows and killer nurses, and both of them are like...
Damn it. That's our whole shtick.
Yeah, that's funny.
There's more history, but eventually Funland sees Rose wandering around and follows her back to her room.
Oh, jeez.
In which he pretends to be room service. He busts in, and he's like, we're going to play.
Yeah, he can't help himself.
He can't help himself, and like he mentions it's a small world after all. And like he starts to like choke her, and he throws her down onto the ground. He says like, Nimrod said like, that dirty stuff about not doing things where you eat, like like they should wash his mouth out with soap. Like, I love you, little girl. Like it is, like it gets real scary,
intense,
real fast. like Rose is on the floor, desperately grasping for the piece of paper on the note on the desk near her, and when she pulls it down, we see it says Morpheus on it, and so she says it, and Morpheus appears, and he's like, "Let her go."
Nice.
Morpheus?
He's like,
Morpheus!
He just shows up. Are you for real?
So he puts him into a dream.
Okay.
Okay? It is not a nightmare. And for a really long time, that kind of upset me.
Sure.
And then I started to understand is that, like, what Neil is saying is that this man is sick.
Right.
Like, he's ill. And, like, that doesn't excuse what he does.
No.
There's something, like, wrong with him. And, like, he doesn't necessarily know right from wrong.
Yeah.
And so, like, he puts him in a dream where there are these children with them. And it's supposed to be an homage to the Oscar Wilde story, The Selfish Giant.
Okay.
And, like, so essentially it's like these children are there and, like, they're like, "Will you play with us?" He's like, "Sure, like, oh, of course, forever." And then he's like, "I'm so sorry I hurt you all. Will you forgive me?" And, like, so that's the dream he gets stuck in. And I'm like, it's... Initially, you'll read this and go like, "That's not right."
You got rewarded for
and then
your...
and then you think about it more about like who Funland is,
Yeah.
and like I don't feel bad for him,
No.
but because like what he did is horrific and he should be punished for it. But like Morpheus is a greater being than us,
Right.
And so he understands his sickness,
Yes.
presumably.
Right.
He's like,
we
at least he's
as
not
humans,
hurting anyone else.
Well, we can't give the punishment that like the Endless can provide.
Yes, and so what Morpheus can do is at least give him the opportunity to like make amends himself.
Right. So I assume he's never going to wake up.
I don't know. That one's questionable. So anyway, Morpheus is now at the convention center. He tells Rose, he's like, "When you wake up, Rose Walker, like, you'll be healed, and I want you have to leave this building. Just get out of this building."
Yeah, it's probably a good idea.
So the Corinthian found out, by the way, that he had to give a speech, and he was like, "Dope, I am in."
Right.
So he goes and he talks about like, you know, what America is about, and like that we don't kill for revenge, we kill to kill, because like that's what we are, and we're entrepreneurs in this field, right? And then he looks out and he sees Morpheus. He's just sitting in the audience.
Right.
He's just attending,
Yeah, just...
and like he starts to sweat. And then eventually, like Morpheus just goes, "You disappoint me," because Morpheus created the Corinthian.
Oh.
He built him, right? And he's like, "That's not what you were meant to be." Like the Corinthian essentially was supposed to reflect like America and humans.
Okay.
And all he did was end up just killing people.
Right.
He's like, "That's not what you were supposed to be." Morpheus made him for humanity, but the Corinthian really latched onto America.
Gotcha.
Like, you've been here for like 40 years, and what have you done? You just scared people by killing them.
Yeah.
And then Corinthian takes his eyeglasses off, and this is when we see the most iconic feature of the Corinthian is that he does not have eyes; he has mouths for eyes, and that's how he's eating the eyeballs.
Right.
And his
why he
eyes,
eats eyeballs.
his eyes can see and can talk.
Yeah. There's a great cover from
Yes.
Nightmare Country, right? That's enough.
And like everybody in the audience is like,
Holy fuck.
So then like Corinthian's like, "Fight me."
No.
Oh, everyone's like, and he's like, "Oh, you all have a problem with me?"
Oh, I'm the weird one.
He's not even paying attention to them. He's just like,
No, Corinthian's like, "Debate me."
He's like, "Screw you, Dream." So he pulls out a knife and he tries to fight Dream.
Oh no.
Oh yeah,
A knife.
knife's gonna work.
My
And
great weakness.
And Dream just like unmakes him, and like there's nothing left but a skull. And that skull will be saved. And like he's like, "I'll try again next time."
The skull still has teeth in its eye sockets.
Yeah,
What the hell, Morpheus? Don't make that.
Ah.
he made that, right?
Yeah.
And so the Corinthian will be remade
Of course.
at one point. Anyway, so then what he does is like Sandman looks out at all these people. And he's like, "You call yourselves collectors? You have nothing but fantasies." Because what Neil kind of learned was that like serial killers, it's not just about the killing. There's like they build into these dreams and these fantasies surrounding it before they even do the act, right?
Right.
And so what he does is he takes that from them, and so they are left with nothing but the knowledge of that they kill people just to kill them, and like he just ruins them.
He ruins.
Yeah.
And I'm
They're
like,
destroyed.
That's amazing.
Yep.
Like now they're left with that. They have no more fantasies around it.
Yeah.
It's just the reality.
It's just the
of it.
reality of what they've done.
Yeah.
That's great.
And I'm like,
I wish he did that with Funland too.
Yeah.
which maybe he did,
Nah.
because it's all within their scope. But
Right.
we just don't see Funland again.
I don't think we see.
and he
Funland
tells them to
anymore.
leave, and so they get in their cars and they leave.
Right.
And then Rose is out in the parking lot. She's like trying to collect herself, and that's when Gilbert arrives with Jed. And she's like, "Is he dead?" And he's like, "No, I heard him sobbing from inside of a trunk." And so essentially, like, they go home. So she goes back to Hal's place. Jed is in the hospital. Meanwhile, Unity is back in England with Miranda. Unity is not well. She's an
Okay.
old woman and she's not well. So Miranda can't even come to see her son. So like, and Rose can't go to see her dying grandmother.
No.
So she's like just trapped here.
Yeah.
Between like her brother's not doing well in the hospital, her
her
grandma's
grandmother's
not doing
dying.
well in the hospital. She's here by herself.
Yep.
everybody tries to give her comfort, but she's like, thank you guys. You guys are being really cool, but like, no.
I'm in a bad place.
And so she tries to go to sleep, and then so does everybody else. And in sleeping, like, everyone's dreams start getting all weird, right? Like,
Do they all like combine?
kind of, not yet. Ken has like this really bizarre dream about like money and himself, right? Barbie has this fantasy dream.
Okay. Like high fantasy.
Very, very high fantasy, which is good to note because the 5th volume is going to delve more into Barbie's dream.
Oh, good.
Okay, so
It's all connected.
you're definitely gonna want to make sure you know what a porpentine is, and the cuckoo, and Martin Tenbones. Okay,
I'll be sure to file that
especially
away.
Martin Tenbones.
Oh, yeah.
Yeeks.
Chantal has a dream in which she's having a relationship with a sentence.
Okay.
Is it a good sentence?
That's so friggin' Neil Gaiman.
That's so
man.
Neil Gaiman.
It's like almost Grant Morrisonian,
I
and it's
know.
like, hey, here, and it's also, you can't do that on TV.
Yeah, no, you can't. Maybe they can. I don't know.
I bet they can't.
I haven't seen this. I didn't go that far. Zelda's also having a dream in which we see that like she seems to have some sort of stammer. So like she talks really fast and like she just endlessly talks, and that's probably why she whispers. And she has a very bizarre dream in which she's like almost an Alice in Wonderland character, and she runs into what she presumes is her mother, and she's like, "Not my mom, please God, not my mom." And like the veil is lifted and it's the face of a spider, and she's like, "Oh, thank God."
Ugh.
And you're like, "What?"
Cool.
What indeed?
Hal has a very interesting dream where he dreams of like Betty Davis and Judy Garland and Marilyn Monroe, and then he sees Judy Garland as Dorothy, and she takes her mask, like her face off, and there's like a witch, and she takes her face off again, and is like, "I'm like, this isn't my real face either, but I'm running out of hands, Hal. You have to help me." And Neil would go on to say that like he knew someone, a drag queen, and like they said it was really hard sometimes to find their own face,
Yeah.
and so like I'm like.
Well, and they picked Judy
This,
Garland.
I gotta tell you, there's a lot of stuff that is mentioned in this that is like it's before its time,
Right.
and like,
Well, it's of its time.
It's of its time, but like in the current culture, there's a lot of things in here. Whether or not they got the correct terminology right, there's a lot of really good stuff in here, and like a lot of like clear desire for Neil to find acceptance, not
Yeah.
for him, but for other people to find acceptance of different like ideals of gender and family and all of that stuff. And
Yep.
it's like it's reading it like before and now reading it now with a modern sensibility is like it's really cool.
Yeah, and the people of today are kind of like really hung up on labels and terms and like ideals of what we call it and how to put it into a box. And it's like back then they didn't have all these terminologies and labels.
Categorize.
Let me tell you something. There is like in volume 5 with that Barbie story, she has a friend who is a transgender individual, and it was a man who became a woman, and that individual ends up dying. And I'm sorry if I'm going to ruin something for you, but this is really important in my opinion. And Barbie ends up going to the grave because their family buried them under their dead name.
Right.
And so she goes to the grave and she takes her lipstick and she just writes over it their
Yeah.
real name. And like we're talking like this is the early 90s.
Yeah. Early
know?
90s, late 80s, yeah.
Yeah, when like this was something that was not quite as like mainstream.
It certainly wasn't discussed openly.
Yeah, and so like that's what I'm saying. That's like you're gonna find like really like dark stuff in here, but you're also gonna find these other things that are like trying to make this like normalized and relevant and real because it is relevant and it shouldn't have to be made so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, so
There's a lot of things that you can connect to in here.
yes.
Well, that's
are
I
very
think why it's lasted so long.
Yes.
Now, not just because DC would like to keep the copyright and not lose it,
Yes.
but also because like
There's
it connects with people. Like when it dropped, it connected.
yeah.
They're strong themes.
And like the people, well, especially because comic book people, you know, like they're on the fringe, they're on the outside. Like especially in the '80s, and it was like
Yes.
once it did, and it stayed, and it's
Yeah.
like keeping it in
But I think
print is
it's-
so responsible.
I think it's also why people who weren't maybe into comic books like gravitated towards it because there was like things in there that they could see in the real world.
yes, and seeing themselves, and they'd never seen in any other.
But like
mainstream
also
book.
things that you'd never seen before.
Big time.
So anyway, Rose is like dreaming and like she's dreaming deeper and deeper.
Deeper and deeper.
And
No
Gilbert
doubt.
Gilbert goes to the hospital where Jed is, right? And like Gilbert, by the way, is often like he says whom, like that's his thing. He goes like whom.
Like that's a sound.
That's a
it's
sound.
It's not a word you say. It's just hum.
Morpheus is in the dreaming with Matthew, and they're watching the vortex. It's happening.
Oh, no.
So what is a vortex?
Yeah.
Right. So like Rose will.
They said she is, but you know.
Yes, she is a vortex, and I guess I could wait till Rose finds out what the vortex is. To
All
reveal.
right, fine.
In the house, all the dreams are starting to kind of coalesce with one another, and it's getting real weird for
Yeah.
everybody involved. Rose is at the epicenter of all of this, and they can see it.
Yeah.
I love this page because how do you read it? You
Doesn't
have
matter.
You have to keep turning it like a vortex.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fun.
And eventually Dream is like, enough. Like there's
This is getting out of hand.
Caused some damage. Nothing I can't repair, but we gotta do this.
But I'd rather
Wait,
not
who
have
caused damage?
Rose.
Rose's vortex, and how it like encircled those dreams.
All the members of the house will like wake up and feel differently. I will tell you that Barbie and Ken's relationship will not make it out of this.
Oh.
Um,
Who gets the dream house?
Are you talking the doll's house? Because I think that's Rose's.
Oh.
Unity's getting weaker and weaker, and like she wants Rose to have the doll house, so she's telling Miranda kind of her last intentions.
Yeah.
And then Unity yet again sleeps, which is like so tragic. Because like Unity is one of the most tragic characters in this book for me, because it's a woman who never got to live her life.
Yeah.
Rose is in the dream world with Morpheus. He's like flying her across the landscape to this like kind of very deserted area, and he's like, all right, so it has begun.
Yeah.
She's like, what is this? What am I? And he's like, okay. So like once every era or so, like every once in a while, like a vortex will happen, and it's someone who's like there's like great power in their dreams, and like they'll draw all dreamers to them until eventually all dreams are connected and everything will be destroyed.
Okay.
Even I don't know why, but like every once in a while, one person becomes the center of the dreaming.
And it may break everything.
And it will break everything, right? And like it will break minds. Like just from that one night, those people like
or irreparably changed.
Now imagine that forever. And he's like, essentially like he mentions that he failed in his duty one time.
Yes.
And a whole world perished.
Right.
And I'm like, dude, you know what'd be dope is if it was Krypton.
Oh my God. Yeah. That'd be kind of cool.
The hell.
No. But that the only way to solve this problem is to kill the vortex.
Oh.
And Rose is like, but I don't want to die. And he's like,
Well.
I'm sorry.
He's like, well.
He's like,
I don't
bad.
care.
Here's the thing about Morpheus. Out of all of the Endless, like Morpheus takes his job the most seriously.
Right. He does not like skip steps
No.
or screw around.
He's like, I have to do this.
Well-
and I failed it one time, and that will never happen again.
Yeah.
It has to happen.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Rose, but this is a sacrifice you got to make.
Yeah.
Right. And that's when Gilbert shows up. Because like Matthew went to get Gilbert to bring him to the dreaming, right?
Because Gilbert knows Morpheus.
Yeah, because Gilbert is the Fiddler's Green.
Oh, yeah. The thing we didn't
Morpheus
get to
is
yet.
The Fiddler's Green is the last of the Arcana. Morpheus had kind of figured out that everything was kind of coming together.
Right.
Right? And again, maybe that's because of Rose's vortex.
Yeah.
Right?
Probably.
You know, Brute and Glob attached to Jed.
Yes.
The Corinthian deciding to come to the serial killer convention.
And
Right.
kidnap
And take Jed.
And Rose moving into the building where Gilbert was living.
Yeah.
Rose is there, like, dealing with the fact that, like, she has to die and doesn't want to.
Yeah.
Right.
And, like, Fiddler's Green shows up.
She also just found her brother.
Yeah.
Yes. And, like, it is revealed, by the way, Fiddler's Green isn't an entity, it is a place.
So he's a place.
The
okay.
Fiddler's Green.
Yes.
And so, like, an entire place got up, and that's why he looks like someone else, because, like, Gaiman thought it would be hilarious, or not hilarious, but, like, interesting that, like, an entity wouldn't make their own person, they would just copy a person that they thought was neat. And so that's what Fiddler's Green does.
Okay.
Was this person a fiddler?
I don't know who they were. I didn't bother to look it up.
I just love it if they were a fiddler because they were in Fiddler's Green and this person's like, yeah, that person. I'm
Right.
gonna be that person.
Morpheus, or Fiddler's Green goes like, okay, kill me instead.
Aw. It's like, I can't. You don't make the
That's
vortex, man.
literally it. Like,
It's not a deal, dude.
yeah, and like Morpheus just ignores it. He's just like, why did you leave? I don't understand. He's like, you're so good.
Right.
Like, you know.
So you're offering to like take your own life for her.
So then,
Yeah.
like,
Of course you're good.
like Gilbert or Rose is like, is there anything we can do to stop him? And like, it's very clear. Like, Morpheus
No.
is like, no, there isn't. Now Fiddler's Green, go back to being.
A place.
Yeah. So like Rose and Fiddler's Green hug, and it's really sad because like Rose is like hates goodbyes, and she's like, you know, just say goodbye. I don't want to start crying. And then like Gilbert goes like, I have to apologize. I wasn't a very good like human, not even a copy of a human, and I've totally failed you. But that like you were the best thing about being human.
Aw.
And they're like, oh, and then he disappears, and like
Becomes.
before them are these green glades and like beautiful like rivers and landscapes, and like that's the Fiddler's Green. Morpheus is like, by the way, you have to die, but like you can stay here in the dreaming.
Oh, okay.
She's like, but I want to live.
Right,
I
yeah.
want to have a life.
I don't know what that means. I don't care about that.
right?
You had
I'm meeting
16
you
years of
halfway.
it. You're welcome.
That's usually Death. Death shows up and she's like,
Sorry.
That's all you get.
Yeah. So then, like, Morpheus going for it. He's like, I'm sorry. This is how it has to be. And she's like, just do it, all right? Just stop talking about it. Just do it, all right? And that's when someone shows up and goes like, hey, stop.
oh, okay.
And it's this
do
woman
you mean, hey,
with
stop?
sort of like pinkish purplish looking hair. And she's like, hello, Rose. She's like, oh, right. I don't look like I used to anymore. I'm your grandmother. It's Unity. Oh, and that's really funny because like she mentions how beautiful it is, and Rose goes like, it was a friend of mine.
Yeah, this place that we're in is a friend of mine.
Well, careful stepping on the grass.
Yeah.
Don't break anything.
Don't step on the grass.
Dream's like, listen, I know who you are, Unity Kincaid, but like I'm in the middle of something.
Right, I'm murdering your granddaughter.
And like she's like, listen, didn't you
hey,
hear me?
how dare you?
Didn't you hear me? That's not who the business is. It's with me.
Hey,
Dream's like,
shush.
excuse me? She's like, yeah, like Rose is the vortex now, but like if I hadn't been asleep and like I would have been the vortex.
How do you know that?
She just knows.
Well, because she's dead now.
She's not dead.
Oh.
She's in the
And Dream's
dreaming.
Dream's like, I don't, what? She's like, of course you don't understand because you're not very bright.
What?
But like, don't let that bother you. She's like, come here, Rose, get over here. She's like, all right, I once gave you a ring. I gave you a gift. And I want you to reach inside of yourself and give me whatever it is that makes you the vortex.
Okay.
And she's like, my heart?
Sure.
She's
Take
like,
it out.
I can't do that. She's like, you're in a dream and I'm running out of time here. Because like she's dying. So that's why she's asleep and she could be in the dreaming.
Yeah.
She's like, but you have to give me your heart.
You have
Right.
to give it to me now, Rose.
So Rose reaches in and she hands her heart.
The heart of the ocean?
It's a glass heart.
It's a
like
glass
in the
heart.
beginning, like
Now
with the
let's be
first
honest,
myth.
hearts are a huge thing.
Yeah.
Every issue mentions hearts or has heart iconography
Iconography.
in
You
it.
saw Desire with the exposed heart?
Yeah.
So she gives it to her. She's like, great. Now I'm the vortex. And so like she breaks it and she like wakes up for a second in reality and then dies. And she's like, what happened? And Dream's like, you died.
Right. And I didn't have to kill you.
And you took the vortex with you.
Yeah. So she's like, all right, well, that's,
I guess that clears up everything. Enjoy.
yeah, like, cool.
Now, does that mean that Rose can't like feel or be in
So
love?
actually that will be explored later on in the Sandman universe, the Dreaming series that they did.
Oh,
Oh, the
not
new
like
one.
book 6 or 7.
more like
No.
book
They explore that later
2015
on
or
that like
something?
she never really had meaningful relationships after that. They were all
Oh.
just flings.
Okay.
She still longed for a place called Fiddler's Green.
Always. But Morpheus does say, like, listen, like, you know, there's a lot I don't understand that what happened. The vortex is gone. You can go now. But, like, your family has suffered enough. So, like, I will go bring your brother back from the shores of Dream, where he's unconscious, essentially. Because, like, that's the least I can do.
His mind's cracked. Yeah.
Well, he's, like, in a coma of some sort, so, like, right? So, like, that's exactly what he does, right? And so, Rose goes home. She moves someplace else because Hal basically sold the house.
Oh, like the whole thing fell apart.
Yeah, everything fell apart over there. And that like Ken got himself a new partner that looks like a younger version of Barbie. Barbie moved to Manhattan. The Spider Women bought the house from Hal, and that Zelda actually spoke to him the other day. So some things worked out, some things didn't work out.
Yeah.
Rose cuts her hair because
It's
like
not the same.
yeah, Rose cuts her hair because like she's
Different.
changed.
Well, she's not in love with it anymore. She doesn't even have a good relationship
I
with her
think
hair.
it's just at a different point in her life. That's right. I'm sorry. She moved in, like her mom and Jed and she lived together in a house, but she hasn't come down. She hasn't seen them for like months. She just lives in her room, just comes to eat because like
Okay.
she's not ready after everything that happened.
Yeah.
Because like
She remembers it.
yeah, because none of them know what happened.
Yeah.
Of course, Unity had a bunch of money. She left it to her family. Of
course.
So they're pretty much taken care of.
That's good.
Rose did, of course, keep the dollhouse. She's dyed her hair pink. She kind of looks a little bit more like Unity now, in a way.
Yeah.
And she's ready to rejoin
Reality or
reality
life.
with her family, right?
Okay.
So they go off and do their thing, right?
Okay.
Meanwhile, Dream's like, okay,
That was weird.
all right. So he goes to his gallery and he picks up this sigil of Desire and is like, get your ass in here. And Desire shows up and is like, hey, what's up? Here's what happened. Desire is the father of Miranda. Desire essentially
Sired.
sired Miranda with Unity while Unity slept.
Okay.
So very inappropriately.
Yeah.
But doesn't break the rules
Right.
because you can have sex with them, but like a mortal,
love them.
a mortal can't love you.
Right. And how can they when you're asleep?
And so, like, essentially...
Oh, and that's why the sigil of desire is that heart.
Yeah, that's why the heart
shape.
is the
Well,
vortex.
no, it's just for him, that's... like, every person's realm has a different version of a sigil.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, never mind.
Like Destiny the Eldest, I think Destiny's the eldest. His are all like portraits, like oil paintings of them in like different garb.
That's fun.
But essentially, had Morpheus killed Rose, he would have killed one of their blood, which you're not allowed to do.
Right.
An Endless can't kill another Endless. And like Desire just really
Wanted that to happen.
turns the knife into her big brother. He's like, what then? What were you hoping to? She's like, what does it matter?
It's like, it's just fun.
It didn't work.
Yeah.
Who cares? Basically, they have two different fundamental differences here. Morpheus believes that like we are like that the Endless are the toys of like those that they serve, or like beings across the universe, right? And Desire sees it the other way around. And like Desire's like, I don't understand that. And he's like, I'm afraid you never will. But like, here's one thing that we'll understand. Do not mess with me or mine again, because if you do you think you could stand against me and against Death and against Destiny, who all take things very seriously?
Right.
And like Desire's like, probably not. But then Desire goes back home and basically forgets it, because like, just like everything else, like Desire's like fleeting.
Yeah.
It's a whimsy.
Right? And that's the story of A Doll's House.
Okay.
Which is like, I freaking love this book.
Yeah.
But like, here's what's great about Neil, because like Neil is just a storyteller, just like all authors are storyteller, but like Neil is a storyteller. And so like things that happen in all of these volumes will end up coming up again.
Oh, sure.
There are things that happen in this that you're like, oh, wait, what? Wait, what? I mean, especially the stuff with Brute Glob and the Halls, right? Like, that's important shit.
Right, like, why?
That is very important.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, cool, and then we'll deal with the Lucifer stuff. And that's really cool, too. Like, that whole thing, very cool. We will deal with Nada as well. Because we did see Nada in Preludes and Nocturnes, and we will return to that in the fourth volume. In
We
Season of
should,
Mist.
because it is like the true love of Morpheus,
Yes,
so it's like that
but
would be...
that's like the driving force of that.
Right, okay.
Is that of that volume is that. So there's just so much, and so it's like so important to like pay attention to all these things. And even if there's like a little short story that you're like, oh, that's not very important. It
will be.
It's either something that's going to like educate you either to a character moment for the characters, or it's going to give you something for like later on.
Yeah.
But it's not insignificant.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: whatever version of it you can get, it's still worth a read. Even if you don't find like any of like the original ones, that's fine. I own more.
But you can.
I own my own fair share of them. I have like 3 versions of this specific one.
Well, of course, I see why.
Part of it's because like I kept forgetting if I bought it.
Yeah.
And like this one had like one of them had a sticker on it, and like I was like, that one I use for like when I'm really reading it.
Yeah, you can really bend it.
Yeah, I
and
can
stuff.
really beat it up if I really want to.
That's right.
Or loan it out, and I'm totally fine with that. But this is a dark one, but it is like so indicative of like Neil Gaiman's ability to like weave a story and to create a world that like sometimes you're like, oh god,
Multiple worlds.
multiple worlds of like intrigue and like have everything come together.
Yeah.
Like in a way where it's like, oh.
Yeah.
Damn!
Like,
Yeah, its coalescence is pretty. It's hard to do.
and then to have things later on come up and be like, oh, remember this thing? That was not insignificant.
Right.
But sometimes it will be.
Seemingly it will be. Yeah.
Like, it depends. It really depends.
Well,
but,
also,
like,
you don't know until like that 5 volumes later where you're just like, oh, you came back around to that?
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
So yeah, like, I can't like recommend it enough. You know how much I love it, and like I said, we probably aren't going to get into the other ones. I kind of went over Dream Country to some degree. A little bit. We delved into it a little bit. Trust me, it's worth a read. It's fun. And it's some of it's silly and some of it's dark. And then you like go right into Season of Mist.
Yeah.
Because that's a great payoff from Preludes and Nocturnes.
Yeah.
With some stuff from this too, because there's some like play between some of the Endless that like will come into like. So not fruition there, but you're like, oh, of course, this makes more sense there.
Right.
But you will get to know more of the Endless.
Okay.
In that one, you'll get to meet some of the others.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's so fun. Cool.
Yeah.
But that's it. That's all I got. You should check the description box and the pinned comment below to get a copy of it. Because if you watch the show, you just gotta read it. You gotta, because right now all you have to read is Preludes in this to be caught up in what they're talking
Then if
about.
you keep reading, then you'll know more than the show.
That's right, and
And
you'll
it's
be ready.
Netflix, so it's probably
Yeah,
canceled.
and you can like gloat it over your friends and be like, I know what happens next.
Yeah.
Or you'll be like, oh, actually, in the book, it's a little different.
Yeah, which is what everyone who likes to read likes to do.
Actually.
Then you'll be a true comic book fan.
And then you can go, well, the book was better.
yeah, there you go.
Or
See?
not. It's totally up to you, but it's well worth it. And like I said, if you choose to not do this and instead want to do the audio version of it, the dialogue is pretty much a one-for-one, again, with like some additional narration here and there, turned to dialogue occasionally, but you're basically going to get a very similar experience. It's just you'll have voices provided for you as opposed to
Your own.
But
head.
some people don't have an opportunity to read as often. So like if you have a long commute, you can throw it on.
Yeah.
I still say it's worth it. It's an amazing like contribution to like our pop culture in general, but also like to comic books, because like it really did help to bring in new readers and like change, I think, for a lot of people their like idea of what comics were.
That's true.
Buy the book. It's why we do the channel.
Yeah, come on. Buy
That's it. That's all.
We love comics.
We love comics.
There you go.
That's our slogan.
That is now our slogan.
Done. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you next time here on Comic Pop or Back Issues.
Yeah, either way.
Oh, okay.
It's all
cool.
here.
Right here. I'm Tiffany.
I'm Sal.
I'm Ben.
Bye.
Yay!
Dope. Everybody can get one.
Everybody can get one.
Sweet.
Sweet. Are we holding? Oh, cool.